After the college entrance exams, Gu Shichuan secretly changed Lu Ruiyan's top-choice university to a third-rate diploma mill. I reported it to the school authorities immediately. Gu Shichuan was severely reprimanded by the school administration and then subjected to a furious, scathing tirade from Lu Ruiyan's father, who had rushed to the scene. The next day, upon hearing the news of his attempted suicide by wrist-cutting at home, Lu Ruiyan lost her mind. She secretly slipped cyanide into my water glass. As the poison took effect, her face twisted into a vicious snarl. Shichuan just wanted to attend the same school as me, to stay classmates. What did he ever do wrong? Why do you have to stick your nose in? You drove him to his death. I died a gruesome death on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the first day of filling out my college applications. Lu Ruiyan looked at me with a beaming smile. Chen Xian. We promised we'd get into Tsinghua or Peking University together. You can't go back on your word. Sunlight streamed through the window, falling on Lu Ruiyan's face. Her smile was so sweet, a stark contrast to when she poisoned me in my past life. Chen Xian, we promised we'd get into Tsinghua or Peking University together. You can't go back on your word. The voice was clear and pleasant, yet it sent a chill down my spine. I clenched my fist, my nails digging deep into my palm. The searing pain served as a stark reminder. This wasn't a dream, I had truly been reborn. Chen Xian, she tilted her head, a flicker of confusion in her eyes. Why aren't you saying anything? I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. In my past life, I was too impulsive. I went and reported Gu Shichuan for tampering with her college application. It ended with me dying from poisoning. This time, I'm definitely not getting involved. I was thinking. After a long silence, I finally spoke up. The admission scores for Tsinghua and Peking University are so high. Can we really both get in? Lu Ruiyan's smile froze for a moment before brightening again. Of course we can. Didn't we promise each other? Just then, the classroom door was pushed open gently, and a familiar figure walked in. Gu Shichuan was dressed in a crisply ironed white shirt, his hair slicked back perfectly. He held a few university application forms in his hand. Ruiyan, am I interrupting? His voice was soft, as if afraid of disturbing something, and his gaze shifted uneasily between Lu Ruiyan and me. I fought back the wave of nausea churning in my stomach. In my past life, it was this wolf in sheep's clothing, this seemingly refined hypocrite, who secretly altered Lu Ruiyan's college application behind her back. Then, after the truth came to light, he faked a suicide attempt to garner sympathy, ultimately leading to my death. No, I didn't. Shichuan, hearing his voice, Lu Ruiyan immediately turned toward him. Did you need something? Gu Shichuan gave a shy smile. So fake it made me sick. It's just, I wanted to ask for your advice about the college applications. He paused deliberately before adding, but it seems I've come at a bad time. You two are on a date, right? My apologies. The sheer audacity was thick enough to brew a whole pot of tea. I sneered inwardly, but kept my expression perfectly neutral. It's fine, you two talk. I took a deliberate step back. I was just heading to the library anyway. Lu Ruiyan was taken aback, not expecting me to concede so readily, because in my past life, I would have lost my temper on the spot. Then, he got into a heated argument with Gu Shichuan. In the end, he had a huge fight with Lu Ruiyan. It had almost become a routine. Chen Xian, Lu Ruiyan hesitated, a flicker of unease in her eyes. I gave her a reassuring smile. Choosing your college preferences is a big decision. You two should discuss it carefully. With that, I turned to leave, but deliberately slowed my pace at the doorway. Sure enough, Gu Shichuan's hushed voice immediately came from behind me. Ruiyan, is Chen Xian upset? It's all my fault. No, he said he's going to the library. That's a relief. Gu Shichuan let out a sigh. Actually, I wanted to ask you, have you really decided on Tsinghua or Peking University? I leaned against the wall, pricking up my ears to listen to the conversation inside. Lu Ruiyan replied without hesitation, of course, I already made plans with Chen Xian, but, Gu Shichuan's voice softened further. I looked into it. With your scores, getting into Tsinghua or Peking University would be a real struggle, and besides what? And besides, Chen Xian's grades are so stellar. If he goes to Tsinghua or Peking, he'll definitely have a crowd of brilliant girls vying for his attention. Gu Shichuan sighed. I'm just worried you might end up getting hurt. I raised an eyebrow. That's such a cheap trick. Yet in my past life, I fell for this clumsy attempt at sowing discord countless times. Shichuan, Lu Ruiyan's voice rose a notch. How could you say that about Chen Xian? I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Gu Shichuan apologized immediately. I I care about you too much. Look at this, the sound of paper rustling. I looked into a local third-tier university. The campus is really nice. And our scores are definitely high enough to get in. I peeked out quietly and saw Gu Shichuan pointing to a school on the brochure for Lu Ruyan to see. I'll think about it. Their bodies were almost pressed together, yet Lu Ruyan did not push him away. I turned and left with a cold sneer. 02. 10 minutes later, Lu Ruyan arrived at the library. Qin Xian, are you jealous again? She asked, walking up to me with a hint of reproach in her voice. Shichuan and I were just discussing our college applications. Was it really necessary to give me the cold shoulder like that? I closed the book in my hands and replied calmly, I wasn't giving you the cold shoulder. I just thought you two needed some space. She was taken aback for a moment, seemingly not expecting me to be so composed. A flicker of suspicion crossed their eyes, but their smile quickly returned. If not, then how about joining the party at Tokawa's place tonight? A lot of our classmates are going. I raised an eyebrow slightly. In my past life, I had refused the invitation out of spite, only to be gossiped about behind my back as petty and antisocial. Alright, Lu Ruyan clearly hadn't expected me to agree so readily. Her mouth opened and closed, but in the end, she only managed to squeeze out a single sentence. 7 o'clock tonight, don't be late. As night fell, I arrived punctually at Gu Shichuan's home, the moment I pushed the door open. The cheerful laughter in the living room came to an abrupt halt. A dozen pairs of eyes turned to look at me in unison, only to quickly look away as if I were thin air. These were all classmates who usually hung out with Gu Shichuan. Standing at the center of the crowd, Gu Shichuan, wearing a casual shirt, stepped forward with a gentle smile. Qin Xian, you're finally here. We've been waiting for ages. His tone was warm, but his eyes were as cold as ice. I nodded and walked straight over to sit on the sofa in the corner. No one greeted me, or even gave me a second glance. They resumed their game, their laughter grating on my ears. Lu Ruyan sat next to Gu Shichuan, occasionally shooting me a complicated glance. I pretended not to notice and looked down at my phone. Halfway through the game, one of the guys suggested changing the rules so that the loser would face a penalty. He was one of Gu Shichuan's closest friends. Everyone agreed with a laugh. Not long after, Lu Ruyan lost. The boy who won immediately started teasing. You lost. You have to give Gu Shichuan a kiss. The group erupted in playful jeers, their eyes darting back and forth between Lu Ruyan and Gu Shichuan. Gu Shichuan lowered his head in feigned shyness, a faint smile playing at the corner of his mouth. Lu Ruyan's face flushed red as she protested in a small voice, that's going too far. A bet's a bet. The crowd pressed on, refusing to let it go. I watched with cold detachment, my heart utterly unmoved. If my past self had been there, I would have flipped the table long ago. But now, all I feel is amusement. They're putting on such an elaborate act. Isn't it all just to provoke me? Lu Ruyan hesitated for a moment, then finally stood up and walked towards Gu Shichuan amidst the crowd's teasing. She quickly planted a kiss on his cheek, then covered her face and ran back to her seat. Gu Shichuan smiled with smug satisfaction, his gaze occasionally darting towards me in a challenging manner. I remained expressionless, not even bothering to give them a glance. The party dragged on late into the night, and I was completely isolated. They chatted, played games, and shared snacks, but not a single person spoke to me of their own accord. Occasionally, someone would accidentally bump into me, offering only a perfunctory apology with eyes full of mockery. I had no heart to stay any longer and got up to leave. Lu Ruyan stopped me. Qin Xian, everyone's having a great time. What's the matter? I gave a faint smile. I'm tired. I just want to go home and sleep. You all carry on. She bit her lip, as if she wanted to say something, but in the end, she just sighed. Well, get home safe. I turned and walked away, their whispers trailing after me. Who does she think she is? Acting all aloof. Yeah, what a buzzkill. 3. I got home and lay down on the bed. Moonlight streamed in through the window, illuminating the yellowed photograph on the wall. It was a photo of Lu Ruyan and me standing on the winner's podium during the high school freshman year sports meet. Back then, her eyes were clear and her smile was pure, like an untouched spring of water. We met in middle school. She was a transfer student and also my new neighbor. The first time we spoke was because she forgot her eraser, and I handed her one. Her face flushed as she took it, and she whispered a quiet thank you. Later, we became desk mates, doing homework together, walking home together, and gradually becoming inseparable. When our high school class assignments were being decided, she nervously tugged on my sleeve and asked, Qin Xian, do you think we'll be in the same class? When she found out we were placed together, she jumped for joy, her ponytail tracing a happy arc through the air. Back then, I was all she saw in her eyes. On rainy days, she would give me her umbrella and run home in the rain herself. She'd get up early and wait in line to buy me buns from the east side of town, just because I casually mentioned craving them, then slip them into my desk. When I failed an exam, she'd wave her little fist and cheer me on, saying, "It's okay. You'll definitely do better next time." She said it more than once, "Chen Xian. We're going to get into a good university together, and become better people together." It wasn't until our second year of high school that Gu Shichuan transferred to our school. He showed up wearing designer sneakers and a luxury watch on his wrist, instantly drawing the attention of the entire class. At first, Lu Rian paid him no mind. That all changed with the basketball game. Gu Shichuan deliberately fouled me on the court, leaving me injured. After the match, right in front of the whole class, he held out the ointment and said to Lu Rian, "Rian, could you get this to Chen Xian for me? I really didn't mean to do that earlier." The sincerity in his eyes was utterly flawless. From that day on, Lu Rian began mentioning Gu Shichuan's name frequently. "I helped Shichuan work through a problem today. Shichuan said the new bubble tea shop is really good." A new keychain from Gu Shichuan appeared on her backpack, and she swapped her phone case for a style he recommended. Even her profile picture started to look a lot like his. When I asked her why she was changing, she blinked and said, "Everyone likes hanging out with Shichuan. I can't be the odd one out, can I?" The change spread like ink dropped into clear water, slowly bleeding outward. She stopped waiting for me after school, saying she needed to tutor Gu Shichuan. She started looking down on my 3-year-old sneakers because Gu Shichuan said guys should pay attention to their appearance. Even on my birthday, she was late because she was helping Gu Shichuan buy reference books, and her gift was just a hastily shoved greeting card. In previous years, she would always bake a cake herself. What chilled me to the bone was that midterm exam, Gu Shichuan was caught cheating by the proctor, but he falsely accused me of passing him the note. When I looked at Lu Rian, she kept her head down, fidgeting with her pencil case, and never spoke up to testify for me. After school, I stopped her, but she just sighed and said, "Chen Xian, Shichuan's family is wealthy. Making a big deal out of this won't do you any good." In that moment, what flickered in her eyes was no longer the gentleness I once knew, but a worldly shrewdness that felt foreign to me. The moonlight shifted, and the photograph faded into the shadows. My hand found the phone under my pillow. The screen lit up, showing Gu Shichuan's latest social media post. In the photo, he and Lu Rian were leaning their heads together. "Any moment is the best moment, as long as I'm with you." I locked the screen. It was as if I heard something inside my heart click shut. A few days later, at the Lu family celebration banquet, the hall was brilliantly lit and the wine cups clinked in a lively toast. Beaming with pride, Mr. Lu raised his glass to the guests. "Thank you all for coming to celebrate my daughter's university acceptance. Rian's admission to Tsinghua and Peking University is all thanks to your support." The guests offered their congratulations one after another. Lu Rian, wearing an elegant dress, stood beside her father with a sweet smile. Just then, the doors to the banquet hall swung open. Gu Shichuan, dressed in a sharp suit and holding an exquisite gift box, walked in with measured steps. His arrival instantly hushed the room, drawing every eye in the room to him. "Uncle, Auntie, congratulations to Rian on getting into her dream university." Gu Shichuan walked up to Mr. and Mrs. Lu and respectfully presented the gift box. "I'm her classmate, Gu Shichuan. This is just a small token of my congratulations." Mr. Lu took the gift box and opened it, finding an expensive lady's watch inside. His expression was complicated, but he still thanked him politely. Lu Rian's eyes lit up, and a blush spread across her cheeks. She said softly, "Shichuan, this watch is far too generous." Gu Shichuan smiled gently, his gaze soft as he looked at Lu Rian. "As long as it's on your hand, it's worth any price." Mr. Lu glanced around, noticing all the seats were taken, and looked slightly embarrassed. Lu Rian, however, paid it no mind. Taking Gu Shichuan's hand, she said, "Dad, let Shichuan take my seat. I'll go find an extra chair." With that, she pointed to the spot next to me, gesturing for me to move. I stood up in silence and yielded the seat to Gu Shichuan. As he sat down, he deliberately nudged me with his elbow, a look of provocation in his eyes. I stepped aside, my face expressionless. Seeing this, my parents' brows furrowed slightly. They had always known about my relationship with Lu Rian, but given the occasion, they held their tongues. During the banquet, Gu Shichuan and Lu Rian chatted and laughed merrily, their behavior intimate. He would occasionally serve her food, whispering something in her ear that made her cover her mouth with a light, delighted laugh. The surrounding guests cast glances that were either envious or curious, yet Mr. Lu's expression gradually stiffened. Finally unable to hold back, father asked in a hushed voice, "Xiao Xian, what's the deal with that Gu Shichuan? Is he very close with Ruyan?" I replied calmly. "They've always gotten along very well." My mother looked at me with concern. "But Ruyan, isn't she with you?" "Mom," I cut her off, my tone flat, "Ruyan and I are just classmates. She has the right to choose her own friends." My father sighed, "But that boy doesn't seem like a good sort to me. You should keep your guard up." I nodded and said nothing more. After a moment, a slightly tipsy Mr. Lu walked over, patted me on the shoulder, his eyes brimming with gratitude. "Xiao Xian. All these years, it's all thanks to you tutoring Ruyan. She never would have gotten into Tsinghua or Peking University otherwise. Come on, let your uncle propose a toast to you." With that, he raised his glass and downed it in one go. I quickly raised my glass and said modestly, "You're too kind, uncle. Ruyan has worked very hard herself." Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Gu Shichuan's face darken instantly. The knuckles of his fingers gripping the chopsticks turned white, as if he were about to snap them in two. Lu Ruyan, sensing the tense atmosphere, quickly interjected, "Dad, you've had a bit too much to drink. Please, sit down and rest." She reached out to steady Mr. Lu, but Gu Shichuan grabbed her arm. He forced a thin smile, his tone sharp. "Uncle, Ruyan got into Tsinghua and Peking University through her own talent and hard work. How can you say someone else helped?" 5. Mr. Lu was taken aback, clearly not expecting Gu Shichuan to interject. He frowned, his tone tinged with displeasure. "That's not a fair way to put it. Xiaoxuan's grades have always been at the top of the class. It's a fact that Ruyan has made great progress studying with him." Gu Shichuan's smile froze on his face, a flicker of malice passing through his eyes. He let go of Lu Ruyan's hand and said with feigned nonchalance, "You're right, uncle. It was thoughtless of me. I'll punish myself." He then lowered his head and took a sip of wine to cover his embarrassment. Lu Ruyan glanced at me, then at Gu Shichuan, her expression somewhat awkward. The atmosphere at the banquet instantly grew delicate. The surrounding guests also sensed something was off, casting curious glances our way. Seeing the situation, Mrs. Lu quickly stepped in to smooth things over. All right, she said, "this is a happy occasion. Everyone, please, enjoy the meal." I remained silent the entire time, as if none of this had anything to do with me. After the banquet concluded, the guests began to depart one by one. Lu Ruyan was called by her father to see the guests off, while Gu Shichuan stood by the doorway, his gaze fixed on me with a chilling intensity. I pretended not to see him and turned to leave, but he blocked my path. "Chen Xian, do you really think this is how you win?" He lowered his voice, his tone laced with menace. I looked at him calmly and retorted, "Win what? I never had any intention of competing with you." Gu Shichuan let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Cut the act. Do you really think buttering up Lu Ruyan's parents will make her change her mind? Let me tell you, the one she likes is me." I shrugged, my tone indifferent. "That's her choice. It has nothing to do with me." With that, I stepped around him and walked away without a second glance. Gu Shichuan's voice came from behind me, dripping with venom. "You're going to pay for this." The next morning, as soon as I arrived at school, I heard students buzzing with gossip. It turned out Gu Shichuan had posted on his social media feed the night before a photo of him and Lu Ruyan together. Caption, "Some people are just passing through, but you're my future." He didn't name names, but everyone knew he was targeting me. When Lu Ruyan saw me walk into the classroom, her gaze became evasive. She hesitated for a moment, then finally walked up to me and said in a low voice, "Chen Xian, Shichuan had too much to drink last night. Don't take what he said to heart." I smiled, my tone light and easy. I never gave it a second thought. "As long as you're happy, that's all that matters." She seemed taken aback by how unfazed I was. She paused for a moment, then let out a sigh of relief. "That's good. Oh, by the way, today's the deadline for submitting your college applications. Have you finalized your choices?" I nodded. "Already submitted. How about you?" "Mine's in two, Tsinghua and Peking." She gave a sweet smile, as if the unpleasantness from last night had never happened. Just then, Gu Shichuan walked in. His face darkened the moment he saw me standing with Lu Ruyan. He strode over, grabbed Lu Ruyan's hand, and said, "Ruyan, I need to talk to you. It's important." Lu Ruyan gave me an awkward glance, but followed Gu Shichuan as he led her away. I watched them leave, feeling nothing inside. Because I already knew everything that was about to happen, I never saw Lu Rian again after that day. Nor did we have any contact. Gu Shichuan's social media feed was updated daily, filled with photos of the two of them traveling and showing off their intimacy. The comment section was flooded with well wishes. And some people even took jabs at me on purpose. Some people are just toads dreaming of swan meat. It's high time to face reality. Shichuan and Rian are a perfect match, a true power couple. 06. I calmly scrolled past, blocking them all. The day I received my acceptance letters from Tsinghua and Peking University, I was sitting at my desk packing my bags. The sunlight outside was brilliant, and the cicadas' chorus rose and fell, as if celebrating a new beginning. Suddenly, a heart-wrenching roar erupted from downstairs. Why didn't you apply to Tsinghua or Peking University? It was Mr. Lu's voice. I walked to the window and gently drew back the curtain. Down below, Mr. Lu stood clutching an admission letter, his face ashen with fury. Lu Rian stood facing him, head bowed, her shoulders trembling slightly. Gu Shichuan stood to the side, his expression briefly flustered before quickly regaining its composure. Dad, Lu Rian's voice was as faint as a mosquito's hum. You what? Lu's father trembled with rage. Do you have any idea how much effort your mother and I put in to get you into Tsinghua or Peking University? And what do? You secretly change your application and sign up for some no-name diploma mill we've never even heard of. Lu Rian looked up, her eyes rimmed red. It was Shichuan who helped me choose. He said this school has a good environment, and we, Gu Shichuan, Mr. Lu whipped his head around, his gaze sharp as a knife piercing through Gu Shichuan. Was this your doing? Gu Shichuan took a step back, forcing a smile. Uncle, you've misunderstood. I merely offered Rian some advice. The final decision was hers alone. Bullshit, Mr. Lu grabbed Gu Shichuan by the collar. Do you take me for a fool? Rian has always listened to Chen Xian since she was a child. Why would she suddenly change her application? You must have meddled. Lu Rian hurried forward and grabbed her father's arm. Dad, this has nothing to do with Shichuan. I made this decision myself. Her father shook off her hand and sneered. You decided yourself. Then tell me, why does the login record for your university application system show it was accessed from Gu Shichuan's laptop? Lu Rian froze, her face instantly turning deathly pale. Gu Shichuan's eyes flickered, and then he put on an aggrieved expression. Uncle, you can't blame me for this. He protested. Rian just borrowed my computer. I had no idea she changed her application choices. Enough, Father Lu roared, jabbing a finger right in Gu Shichuan's face as he shouted, Get out of here, and stay away from my daughter from now on. The news spread, and the Lu family became the laughingstock of the entire neighborhood. Eventually, half the city knew about it, and it even made it onto the trending list. Every day, the neighbors would gather downstairs, pointing and gossiping, their voices cutting through the cracks of the Lu family's door like knives. I heard the Lu's daughter turned down Tsinghua or Peking University to run off with some no-good boy to some diploma mill. You can say that again. Her father was so furious he nearly ended up in the hospital. That boy's family might have some money, but from what I hear, his character is just awful. My parents were sitting in the living room, the TV volume turned down low. My mother poured me a glass of water and sighed. It's a good thing you never got too close with that girl, otherwise, it would be our family's reputation in tatters now. My father nodded in agreement. I always knew that Gu Shichuan was no good. The Lu family has really taken a fall this time. I lowered my head, took a sip of water, and said nothing. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the doorbell suddenly rang. I opened the door. Lu Rian was standing there, her eyes red and swollen, her face as pale as a sheet of paper. Her dress was crumpled, and her hair was a mess. Chen Xian, as soon as she spoke, her voice choked up. Could you stay back and repeat the year for me? Leaning against the doorframe, I looked at her with a faint, ambiguous smile. Why? She bit her lip, her eyes welling up with tears. We can take the entrance exams again, together. We can both get into Tsinghua or Peking University, just like we promised each other. 7. A few seconds later, I said coldly. Then why don't you ask Gu Shichuan to repeat the year with you? In your heart, isn't he more important than I am? The words struck her like a knife, plunging straight into her heart. Her expression instantly contorted, and tears streamed down her face, but soon, that pitiful, delicate expression twisted into one of sheer ferocity. Chen Xian, she shrieked, how can you be so heartless? I'm in this state, and you still have to mock me. I shrugged, my tone indifferent. I'm just telling it like it is. Aren't you two a match made in heaven? Why not have him tag along to your diploma mill, or keep you company while you repeat the year? Perfect, right? Her chest heaved violently, the tears in her eyes were scorched away by fury, replaced by a look of hysterical madness. Fine, just perfect. She abruptly raised a hand and wiped the tears away. Chen Xian, don't you dare think I'm desperate for you. If you don't appreciate me, plenty of others will. You'll regret this. I let out a cold laugh, my eyes icy. Suit yourself. That remark completely enraged her. Her face flushed crimson. She lunged forward, grabbing my collar, her nails digging into my skin. Who do you think you are? She screamed, her voice as shrill as scraping glass. You're nothing but a nerd. What else do you have besides good grades? Sure, Chuan is 100 times better than you. His family is rich, he knows how to make me happy, and he's willing to give me everything. And you, all you do is stand there coldly, watching me make a fool of myself. I let her drag me along, neither resisting nor responding. Her madness was like a clumsy performance, utterly laughable. Seeing I remained unmoved, she suddenly let go and took 2 steps back. She fixed me with a venomous glare. Chen Xian, you'll regret this. I'll make you regret the choice you made today. With that, she turned and stormed down the stairs, her footsteps pounding as if she meant to shatter the steps. I closed the door, leaned back against it, and let out a long, deep sigh. Outside the window, the moonlight remained cold and pale. On the day of my flight, I received a photo from Lu Ruyan. She was standing in the hotel lobby, while Gu Shichuan was checking in at the front desk. Chen Xian, you still have a chance to back out. I just smiled, replied with wishing you a lifetime of happiness together. Make sure you're stuck with each other. And then immediately blocked them. 8. Lu Ruyan didn't retake her college entrance exams. She chose to attend a diploma mill with Gu Shichuan. After the semester started, Gu Shichuan quickly ingratiated himself into the school's circle of rich kids, having seen more of the world. He began to look down on Lu Ruyan for being unsophisticated and not knowing how to dress. He stopped accompanying her to class, instead frequenting bars. His social media feeds were filled with intimate photos with different girls. Sure, Chuan, where were you yesterday? Why didn't you reply to my messages? One day, Lu Ruyan stopped him at the foot of the dormitory building, grabbing his arm, her voice trembling. Gu Shichuan shook her off, frowning impatiently. Give it a rest, will you? Do I have to report to you every time I grab a drink with friends? But you promised you'd go to the library with me. The library, he scoffed. What's so great about a place like that? If you want to go, go by yourself. Don't drag me into it. Lu Ruyan stood frozen in place, watching him stride away with his arm around a heavily made-up girl. That night, she waited downstairs at the dormitory until the early hours of the morning, finally seeing Gu Shichuan stumble back, reeking of alcohol. She rushed up to confront him, only to be shoved away. Get lost, don't embarrass yourself here. His gaze was icy cold, a world apart from the gentle, considerate Gu Shichuan she once knew. Then, things took a turn for the worse. Gu Shichuan started borrowing money from her, coming up with all sorts of excuses, a friend in urgent need, a failed investment, even buying gifts to win her favor. Lu Ruyan gave him all her living expenses and even secretly took money from home. Then one day, she saw Gu Shichuan at a bar, his arm around another girl, using the medical expenses she had just transferred to him to pay the bill. Gu Shichuan, she rushed over, her voice shrill and piercing. Gu Shichuan turned around, a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes, but he quickly composed himself. What are you doing here? You lied to me. She grabbed the wine glass from the table and threw its contents at him. You said this money was for your mother's treatment. The alcohol dripped down his cheek. Gu Shichuan's face darkened instantly. He seized her wrist with such force that tears sprang to her eyes. Lu Ruyan, don't push your luck. You gave that money willingly. What's with this scene now? Then, Lu Ruyan was shoved away violently by Gu Shichuan, stumbling and collapsing onto the floor. The bar's lights were blinding, and the mocking laughter of the surrounding crowd washed over her like a tidal wave, drowning her self-respect. Gu Shichuan looked down at her from his superior position, his eyes filled with utter disgust. I'm begging you, stop clinging to me. Don't you get how annoying this is? Trembling, she pulled herself up and stumbled out of the bar. The night wind cut like a knife, and her tears blurred her vision. She walked aimlessly, the cold, indifferent face of Gu Shichuan and the sweet nothings that once made her heart flutter flashing relentlessly through her mind, but now, it all felt like a cruel joke. She walked onto an overpass, leaned on the railing, and gazed at the endless stream of car lights flowing beneath. In a daze, Qin Xian came to her mind, that boy who had always quietly stood by her side, the one she had hurt time and again, yet who had never given up on her. In junior high, struggling to adjust after transferring schools, her grades plummeted. Qin Xian would stay behind after school every day, patiently tutoring her. He never made her feel slow, always saying with a smile, "Take your time, you can do this." The sunlight streaming through the window would fall on his profile, warm and bright. At the high school sports meet, after she nearly fainted from running the 800-meter race, it was Qin Xian who carried her to the infirmary. His back wasn't broad, yet it made her feel utterly safe and secure. Then there was the time she was homesick with a fever. Qin Xian skipped evening study hall and braved the rain to bring her notes and a thermos of hot porridge. When she opened the door, he was soaked to the bone, his hair was still dripping, but he smiled as he handed her the thermos. "Eat it while it's hot. I marked the key points in the notes, look them over once you're feeling better. The sweeter the memory, the more bitter the reality." Lu Ruyan covered her face, tears welling up between her fingers. 9. She remembered how she had repeatedly neglected Qin Xian for Gu Shichuan. On Qin Xian's birthday, she was late because she was helping Gu Shichuan buy reference books. All she could do was hurriedly shove a greeting card into his hand. She didn't even notice the disappointment in his eyes, let alone realize he had quietly tucked away that birthday card she had once promised to make for him herself. What hurt her the most was that monthly exam. Gu Shichuan was caught cheating and falsely accused Qin Xian of passing him the note. When the teacher questioned her, she had seen the truth. Yet she chose to remain silent out of fear of offending Gu Shichuan. She could never forget the look in Qin Xian's eyes when he turned to her. It was the despair of being betrayed by the person she trusted most. "What have I done?" Lu Ruyan sank to the ground, hugging her shoulders tightly as she wept uncontrollably. She remembered how hysterical she had been the last time she saw Qin Xian. She had called him a bookworm, saying Gu Shichuan was 100 times better than him. Looking back now, every word felt like a boomerang, cutting her to the quick. Her phone buzzed suddenly, a message from her mother. "Sweetheart, your father is in the hospital. The doctor says it's from long-term emotional distress. Could you come home to see him when you have a chance?" Lu Ruyan stared at the screen, her heart gripped by an invisible hand. Her father had always been so proud of her, yet for Gu Shichuan, she shattered her father's hopes and ruined her own future. Lu Ruyan finally understood that she had pushed away someone truly precious with her own hands. Qin Xian's tenderness, understanding, and sincerity were luxuries she could no longer afford. All Gu Shichuan ever gave her was deceit and pain. The night wind carried away her sobs, but it could not carry away the endless regret in her heart. If time could flow backward, she would have held that young man's hand tightly, never to let go. It's a pity, there are no ifs in this world. Life at Tsinghua and Peking University has been even more fulfilling than I imagined. Here, I've met many like-minded friends and found my true calling. But the greatest fortune of all was meeting Wen Xiaoyu. She was like a beam of light, shining into my life without warning. I first saw her at the Literature Club's recruitment meeting. She stood on the podium, speaking eloquently, her eyes sparkling with a passion for the written word. Her smile was pure, without a trace of artifice, as if it could dispel any gloom, just like Lu Ruyan from all those years ago. Later, we became partners, planning events together and pulling all-nighters to meet deadlines. Gradually, she found her way into my heart. Wen Xiaoyu never asked about my past, but she always had a keen sense for my shifts in mood. Once, I happened to see Gu Shichuan and Lu Ruyan's updates on social media, and my eyes dimmed for a moment. She didn't say a word, just silently handed me a cup of hot cocoa. Then, she told a corny joke that made me burst out laughing. In that moment, it suddenly dawned on me, true healing isn't about deliberately avoiding the pain, but about having someone willing to face it with you. On the day we officially became a couple, she took my hand and said earnestly, "Qin Xian, I may have missed your past, but I promise I'll be there for your future." Every step of the way, her gaze was steady and tender, and for the first time, I felt what it was like to be cherished unconditionally. However, that peaceful life was shattered one day. It was a weekend afternoon, and I had arranged to study with Wen Xiaoyu at the library. Sunlight streamed through the windowpane, spilling onto the pages of the book. She was dozing on my shoulder, her breathing even and soft. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by a flurry of hurried footsteps. "Qin Xian," a familiar voice trembled into the air. I looked up and saw Lu Ruyan. 10. Lu Ruyan had grown much thinner, her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen. She had clearly been crying for a long time. She stood before the table, her fingers clutching the hem of her clothes tightly, as if it took every ounce of her courage just to speak. "Can we talk?" When Xiaoyu was startled awake, she rubbed her eyes and looked at me, confused. I gave her hand a gentle squeeze to reassure her, then said coldly to Lu Ruyan, "We have nothing to discuss." Lu Ruyan's tears fell instantly. "I was wrong. I know I was wrong. Gu Shichuan lied to me. He never loved me at all. Only now do I realize, you're the only one who's ever been sincere with me." Her voice choked with sobs, her words tumbling out in a broken, incoherent stream. I didn't say a word. Just stared at her with a blank expression. All those past hurts flashed through my mind like a revolving lantern, her betrayal, her mockery, her hysterical curses. And now, does she think a simple "I was wrong" can just erase it all? When Xiaoyu abruptly stood up, her gaze was sharp as a blade, yet her voice was eerily calm. "Excuse me, what gives you the right to stand here and cry?" Lu Ruyan was stunned, clearly not expecting anyone to interrupt. When Xiaoyu pressed on, "When you hurt Qin Xian, did it ever cross your mind that he would be in pain too? When you abandoned him for someone else, did you ever consider how heartbroken he would be? Now that your life has gone south, you come crawling back begging for his forgiveness. Just who the hell do you think you are?" The barrage of accusations exploded like artillery shells, draining all color from Lu Ruyan's face in an instant. Her lips parted, but no words came out. When Xiaoyu let out a cold, mocking laugh. "Your tears mean nothing to him. If you're truly sorry, then do him a favor and vanish from his world. Stop bothering him." Lu Ruyan staggered back a step, the last glimmer of hope in her eyes shattering completely. She glanced at me, then at Wen Xiaoyu, before finally covering her face, turning, and running out of the library. Silence hung in the air for a few seconds, followed by the low murmur of hushed conversations. When Xiaoyu sat back down beside me and gently took my hand, "Are you okay?" I shook my head, a relieved smile touching the corners of my mouth. "I'm fine, really." In that moment, I felt the last trace of gloom in my heart dissipate. The pain of the past had finally, truly, become just that, the past. When Xiaoyu leaned on my shoulder and whispered, "I'll be here for you from now on," I nodded and gave her hand a squeeze. At the end of the year, I boarded the flight home, holding Wen Xiaoyu's hand. When my father saw us, his gaze lingered on Wen Xiaoyu for a few seconds before a warm, approving smile spread across his face. On the way home, father asked about our lives at school. Wen Xiaoyu answered with grace and ease, occasionally making father laugh heartily. After dinner, father brewed a pot of tea. He suddenly sighed and said, "Xiaoxian, there's something I think you should know." My heart sank, a vague suspicion dawning on me. When Xiaoyu, keenly aware of the shift in my mood, quietly took my hand. "Lu Ruyan passed away 3 months ago." My father's voice was low. "She found out she was pregnant and went to Gu Shichuan. That bastard refused to take responsibility and even humiliated her in public." In a fit of rage, Lu Ruyan stabbed him 18 times, then jumped from the 7th floor. The teacup trembled slightly in my hand. When Xiaoyu quickly took the cup and gently wiped my hand with a tissue, I asked, "What about Gu Shichuan?" "He's alive, but he's paralyzed from the neck down. I've heard his mind isn't quite right either." Father shook his head. "Her mother couldn't bear the shock. She had a mental breakdown and is now in a sanatorium. The Lu family is utterly ruined." 11. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the steady tick-tock of the wall clock. I finally spoke up. "Dad, Xiaoyu and I will go visit Uncle Lu tomorrow." Father looked a bit surprised, but quickly nodded in agreement. "All right, that's very thoughtful of you." That night, I stood by the window, gazing at the pitch-dark windows of the Lu residence. There was a time when warm light always glowed from within. Lu Ruyan would wave to me from the window, calling out with a smile, "Qin Xian, see you tomorrow." When Xiaoyu wrapped her arms around me from behind, pressing her cheek against my back, "If you're sad, just let it out." I turned around and pulled her into my arms. "I'm not sad at all. I just feel, it's absurd." My fingers ran through her hair. If she hadn't changed her application back then, if Gu Shichuan had never shown up, there are no ifs. When Xiaoyu looked up at me, her gaze resolute, "Her choices, her fate, none of it is your responsibility." I nodded. The next day, we went to the Lu family's home, bringing fruit with us. It was Mr. Lu who opened the door, looking much older than I remembered. His temples had gone completely white, and his eyes were clouded and vacant. When he saw me, he paused for a moment, taken aback. His gaze shifted to Wen Xiaoyu. "And this is, Uncle Lu, this is my girlfriend, Wen Xiaoyu," I said softly. A flicker of complex emotion passed through Mr. Lu's eyes, but he quickly forced a smile. Good, good. He stepped aside to let us in. In the living room, a portrait of Lu Ruyan was displayed. In the photo, her smile is radiant, as if she were still the girl with the ponytail from all those years ago. Wen Xiaoyu stepped forward and lit 3 sticks of incense, watching her solemn movements. Father Lu's eyes suddenly welled up with tears. If only she had been as sensible as this young lady, then she wouldn't have. His words choked off. He covered his face, crouched on the ground, his shoulders shaking violently. Wen Xiaoyu crouched down and gently patted his back. Uncle, you must take care of yourself. As we left the Lu residence, a light snow began to fall. Wen Xiaoyu linked her arm with mine and said suddenly, Chen Xian, let's go to the hospital. I looked at her, puzzled. I want to see Gu Shichuan. Her eyes turned cold. I want to see what that scumbag, the one who drove a girl to such a state, looks like now. The hospital corridor was thick with the smell of disinfectant. Gu Shichuan's room was at the far end of the corridor, a sign for the psychiatry department hanging by the door. Through the glass window, I saw him curled up on the bed, staring vacantly at the ceiling. He doesn't recognize anyone anymore, the nurse whispered to us. He keeps muttering, don't come near me all day. It's probably psychological trauma from before. When Xiaoyu stared coldly at the person inside and suddenly said, 18 stabbed wounds, how much must she have hated him? Gu Shichuan tilted his head and saw us. His expression suddenly became agitated, his eyes burning with a fierce intensity. The monitor began beeping with an urgent alarm. By the time the medical staff arrived, his heartbeat had flatlined for good. As we left the hospital, the snow was falling even harder. When Xiaoyu suddenly turned around in the snow and hugged me, her voice muffled against my coat. Chen Xian, promise me you'll never become someone like him in this lifetime. I held her tightly in return. I promise. Snowflakes landed on her eyelashes, melting into tiny droplets. I bent down and kissed away that touch of cold, and with it, the last shadow in my heart dissolved. When I got home, my father was sorting through old things and pulled out a yellowed photograph. It was a picture from the high school freshman sports meet, of Lu Ruyan and me standing side by side on the winner's podium. My father hesitated, about to throw it away, but I stopped him. Keep it, I said, placing the photo in the drawer. It's a part of my life, too. Outside the window, the snow gradually stopped, and a ray of sunlight broke through the clouds. When Xiaoyu's smiling face was especially radiant in the halo of light, it was like the warmest sun of winter. Story 2, Song Lian and I were reborn at the same time, just like in his previous life. He came to marry me full of anticipation, but I refused. Song Lian was stunned. Why, we've been happily married for 50 years. I shook my head indifferently. After being called Mrs. Song all my life, I also want to have my own name. Song Lian didn't understand and thought I was throwing a tantrum. Without me, what else can you do? You wouldn't even be qualified to sweep the streets. He was waiting for me to regret it. After waiting for many years, he watched helplessly as I reached the peak, becoming someone he could no longer reach. 1. The day Song Lian was appointed as an honorary professor at the university happened to be our 50th wedding anniversary. Our 2 sons made arrangements and held a lively celebration party at home. During the dinner, a young female reporter interviewed me. Mrs. Song, if there is a next life, would you still be willing to marry Professor Song? She was only in her early 20s, full of vitality. Her deer-like eyes swept over the wedding rings on Song Lian's and my fingers, and her eyes were filled with yearning for love. I knew what she meant. Song Lian and I were well-known affectionate couple, and the media had reported on us several times. We were college classmates. During the educated youth movement, we were also in the same rural area. We stayed together through 60 years of trials and tribulations. I took care of our 2 children, managed household affairs, and looked after Song Lian's sick mother. Song Lian devoted himself to his career. Starting as an unknown poor student, he became a professor at a prestigious university, joined the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences, and acquired a great many honorary titles, with the man handling external affairs and the woman taking care of the household. It was a textbook-style marital model. Everyone thought I was very lucky. My husband had a successful career, and both of our sons graduated from prestigious universities and had good jobs and promising futures. But no one knew that beneath the glamorous exterior was a woman's life that went unnoticed. All these years, I hadn't been happy. I opened my mouth, and before I could speak, Song Lian had pushed through with a wine glass in hand, forcefully interrupting me. Of course she would. She has had a wonderful life. Our 2 sons also joined in the teasing. Mom was extremely lucky to marry Dad. Grandpa always said that our family's ancestral grave must have been emitting auspicious smoke. If there is a next life, Mom definitely won't let Dad get away. Song Lian twitched the corners of his mouth, and the wrinkles at the corners of his eyes squeezed together, revealing a doting smile. I won't be able to get away. Your mother is very good at pestering people. The female reporter's eyes lit up, and she let out an exclamation. Professor Song, does that mean Mrs. Song pursued you back then? I was the one who pursued Song Lian. This fact had been reported by the media. The female reporter must have done her homework, so she couldn't possibly not know. When Song Lian heard her ask this, he pursed his lips proudly and repeated the same old story that he had told hundreds of times. I took the initiative to bring him meals and wash his clothes. When he was sick, I helped him with farm work. Since I took the initiative in this relationship, Song Lian had always been in a superior position, and I had to serve him all my life. This was what I deserved. The female reporter giggled and exclaimed, in those days, Mrs. Song was so brave, too. The word brave sounded surprisingly harsh to my ears. Ever since I married Song Lian, I had nothing to do with these two words. My mother-in-law was a shrewd and domineering woman, living together as a big family. Our habits in daily life, from food, clothing, housing to transportation, all had to follow their rules, from the arrangement of furniture to the pillowcases and quilts in the room. And even which fabric I chose to make clothes, I had no say. This indigo fabric is old-fashioned and ugly. Wear the blue one tomorrow. I'd put it on your bedside, dear. This table lamp was placed on the bedside table just fine. Why did you move it to the chest? I kept hitting it when I waved my hand at night, and I was afraid it would break. Then be more careful. It's better to keep the table lamp on the bedside table. It's convenient for getting up at night. My mother-in-law put the table lamp back on the bedside table. Her narrow eyes squinted as she looked around the bedroom. She also opened the wardrobe door and rearranged the clothes according to her habits. Your pants can't be placed on top of Song Lian's. If a woman overpowers a man, how can that be good, Guan Yue? It's not that I'm criticizing you, but you're really not careful enough in your work. At first, I wasn't used to it and protested to Song Lian. He frowned and looked at me in surprise. Mom is doing this for our own good. Can't you just be more accommodating? Mom is older, and she knows more about these household matters than you. Just listen to her. In those days, people's thinking was conservative, and I didn't dare to contradict my mother-in-law, so I gave in. All these years, I endured my mother-in-law's dominance, Song Lian's nitpicking, the naughtiness of our two sons, and the contradict from my daughters-in-law. I gave in my whole life. In my small world, I endured step by step and retreated step by step. Finally, I shrank into a corner, living like a mere shell, and they called this a blessed life. Facing the yearning and envy in the young female reporter's eyes, I really couldn't bear to let her live in a false fantasy. 3. No, I wouldn't. I raised my voice and shook my head firmly. I don't want to marry Song Lian again, after being called Mrs. Song all my life. If I could live my life again, I also want to have my own name. The lively banquet hall fell silent instantly. The people around turned to look at me in surprise. The female reporter widened her eyes, clearly not expecting this answer. The smile on Song Lian's lips froze. He shrugged helplessly and held my hand tightly. This old woman, we had a little quarrel yesterday. And she's still angry. Look at you. How old are you? Everyone laughed, and the atmosphere at the dinner table became relaxed again. Our two sons shook their heads and complained, that's just Mom's temper. It's all thanks to Dad's tolerance. Mom, in front of so many people, you should give Dad some face. The youngest son shrugged. Mom has been spoiled by Dad. Everyone praised us, saying that Professor Song and his wife were so affectionate and were still acting like young lovers having a quarrel. Song Lian pulled me into the quiet study, closed the door, and the smiling expression on his face instantly turned cold. Guan Yue, what do you mean? Are you deliberately provoking me? He turned to look outside the glass door and lowered his voice. Is it because of the other day when I asked you to cook noodles for Zhou Hafeng? Look, she's already married. There's really nothing between us. Can't you be more magnanimous? Zhou Hafeng was one of Song Lian's female students. She was intoxicated by the extensive knowledge and refined demeanor of this tutor and once pursued Song Lian very passionately. Song Lian was tempted. He watched movies with Zhou Hafeng, accompanied her to the cafeteria for meals every day, patiently guided her with her studies, and even added her name to his long, prepared thesis, but that was all. Song Lian had a sense of measure. He had 2 sons, a wife who had accompanied him for most of his life, a stable family, a decent job, and a good reputation. He knew very well what was important and what was not. Seeing that the situation was getting out of control, he coldly rejected Zhou Hafeng and even invited her to our home as a guest. Watching him cook in the kitchen with me and attentively tie an apron for me, Zhou Hafeng rushed out of our house crying. Later, she transferred schools at lightning speed and completely disappeared from our lives, until last year, when Zhou Hafeng's husband was transferred to Song Lian's school. They resumed contact. With the passage of time, they tacitly avoided mentioning the past. When Zhou Hafeng and her husband visited our home and talked about the past during the dinner, Zhou Hafeng smiled and said, "The pork rib noodles made by the teacher's wife are extremely delicious. I used to share the teacher's lunch, and I still remember it vividly." "That's nothing." Song Lian waved his hand. "Guanyue, go and make her a bowl of noodles." 4. At that time, there was no real wrongdoing between them, and our sons were still young. Song Lian came home and told me that the female student was pestering him and asked me to help deal with the situation. So, I didn't hold it against him, but that didn't mean I was magnanimous enough to cook for her. Song Lian reached out and grasped my shoulders. "I knew it was about this. In the end, you made an excuse of having a headache and refused to do it, and I didn't say anything, right? I didn't hold it against you, but now you're throwing a tantrum." Song Lian sighed, as Bolin said, "You've really been spoiled by me. In front of so many people, you didn't give me any face." After a while, the youngest son also quietly came to the study and complained to me, "Mom, the older you get, the more childish you become. You should know when to throw a tantrum. How can Dad face others after what you said? When you go out later, smooth things over and say." Looking at my son who was chattering and lecturing me, I felt a bit dazed. In the blink of an eye, Bolin had grown so big. From the little boy who clung to me all the time, he had grown into a man who had established his own family and career. He had his own career and his own ideas. He no longer called me mom as he used to. Mom is just a useless housewife. Has a job, well, the school arranged it out of respect for Dad. It's just a sinecure, and she only works half a day. Dad is the most amazing one. Mom raised us well. That's because of our good genes. We're smart, just like Dad. Dad is the one who works the hardest. Mom is just here to enjoy the good life. So, Mom's thoughts don't matter at all. 5. I felt very disappointed and didn't want to agree with my son anymore. "I'm not throwing a tantrum." I raised my voice and repeated word by word. "If I could do it all over again, I just want to live alone." Bolin didn't understand. "Why? Dad treats you so well." As I said just now, I want to have my own name and my own career. Bolin sneered. "Your own career? Mom, what can you do? You can't even make a pancake without burning it." Song Lian also shook his head. "You're just talking big. Without me, what else can you do? Sweep the streets." The father and son exchanged a look and smiled tacitly. Bolin patted Song Lian on the shoulder. "They say that the older people get, the more child-like their temper becomes. Look at Mom." Song Lian twitched the corners of his mouth. "Yes, she's getting old and confused. As a family of respectable people, we wouldn't quarrel at the banquet, so the matter was dropped." At night, when the party was over, Song Lian took a shower and, as usual, lay in bed reading a book. After reading a few pages, he suddenly put down the book. "Guanyue, about what happened during the day, were you serious? Do you really not want to be with me in the future?" I shook my head again. Song Lian was stunned, and his eyes flickered slightly. After a moment, he stroked the back of my wrinkled hand with his rough fingers. "I did have a moment of weakness, but over all these years, you know my character, Guanyue. The only person I've ever cared about is you. That was my mistake. We're both getting old. Can you stop holding on to it?" Song Lian rarely admitted his mistakes, and he was only willing to do so in this matter. Once he admitted his mistake, I had to accept it, otherwise, I would be the one being unreasonable. But this time, I didn't want to accommodate him anymore. "It has nothing to do with that. I just want to live alone and have some peace." Song Lian was angry. "What do you dislike about me? Aren't I good enough? When you go out, everyone addresses you as Mrs. Song. What more do you want?" "I don't want others to call me Mrs. Song. I have a name. I'm Guanyue." I couldn't help raising my voice. "I don't want to be your appendage." Song Lian was stunned for a moment and then exclaimed in surprise. "I get it. You're jealous of me. You see that I got the honorary professorship, and you're envious." As he spoke, he burst out laughing. "You're just a woman who cooks at home. Do you also want to be a professor?" Now I know why you've been acting so strangely today. Alright, that's enough of your empty talk. Don't I know you? You're even afraid of a mouse. Without me, you can't do anything, Song Lian concluded with a laugh. If you could do it all over again and didn't choose me, you would surely suffer a great deal. With your intelligence, you can't even do housework properly, and you want to be a professor. It's only me who can spoil you. Don't be ungrateful, I was ill-affected. You always say I'm stupid. Don't you remember that we were college classmates? I was one of the earliest female college students in that era. How could I be stupid? Song Lian sneered disdainfully. You were just lucky. If it weren't for the educated youth movement that started a year after you entered college, with your limited knowledge, you wouldn't even have been able to get a college diploma. Alright. I'm too lazy to argue about these useless things. Go to sleep. 6. Song Lian turned off the light. I was plunged into darkness. He always liked to call me stupid. I'm from the south. I'm not good at kneading dough. I don't know how to pickle cabbage. And I'm not good at lighting the Kong, a traditional heated brick bed in northern China. My mother-in-law said that a stupid daughter-in-law like me was only suitable for their family. In other families with a bad-tempered mother-in-law, I would have been kicked out long ago. Song Lian tried to smooth things over, saying that I was a fool who was lucky. The more he said it, the more it seemed to become an established fact. When our children were admitted to prestigious universities, they also said that they inherited their intelligence from their father. If they were like me, it would have been a disaster. I didn't understand how I had ended up like this. Back then, I was the first female college student in our village. When I received the admission notice, I felt that the whole world was at my feet. I was full of pride. How did I become such an ordinary and incompetent housewife? In the dark, I quietly shed tears. Just like countless ordinary nights, I sat up half the night, lost in memories of the past and endless regret, until there was a faint light in the distance. Dawn was breaking. It was time for me to get up and make breakfast. Today, our 2 sons were bringing their grandchildren to visit. My grandson loves the buns I make the most. My granddaughter likes the preserved egg congee I cook. My daughter-in-law, who studied abroad, likes sandwiches. And Song Lian likes hand-pulled noodles. The whole family has different tastes, and it will take a long time to prepare. I lifted the quilt and sat up. A familiar yet strange figure burst into the room. Oh, what time is it? Song Lian coughed all night yesterday. How could you still be sleeping? Get up quickly. You have to help him finish his work points today. The middle-aged woman was wearing a red floral jacket, with a black hairpin securing her hair. Her cheeks were ruddy and plump, and her eyes were narrow and long. She was holding a wooden basin in her arms, and the dirty clothes inside were piled high. Wash these clothes on your way. I still have a lot of work to do in the fields, and I'm too busy. I stared at that unfamiliar yet vaguely familiar face for a while, feeling greatly shocked in my heart. Mother-in-law. My mother-in-law had been dead for more than a decade. Only after she passed away did I live a somewhat easier life for a few years. How could I see her again? I looked around. It was a rough earthen house, with a wooden table that had a lame leg, and the windows were pasted with dusty newspapers. Was this nanny village in the 1970s? Realizing that I had been reborn, I sat numbly on the bed, with a complex mix of emotions welling up in my heart, seeing that I didn't move. My mother-in-law came over and pushed me. What are you standing there for, you fool? You were stupid when you were young. I don't know what my son saw in you. My mother-in-law urged me impatiently. Hurry up, wash the clothes first and then come find me in the fields. After saying that, she left in a hurry. I followed her, walking out of the room in a daze. Not far outside the door was a well. Several young women wearing headscarves were squatting by the well washing clothes. They were pounding the clothes with wooden pestles while chatting loudly. Is Song Lian sick again? He's an educated youth from the city. He has the body of a young master. So delicate. What's so delicate about it? It's been 7 years since he came to the countryside. Right. He still hasn't adapted. Poor Guanyue, that silly girl, has to do work for his family again. What's so pitiful about it? With Song Lian's good looks and the fact that he's educated. If it weren't for his difficult mother, I'd also ask my daughter to wash his clothes. I stopped in my tracks. 7 years in the countryside. I went to the countryside when I was 19 and married Song Lian when I was 27. Now it's the 7th year in the countryside, which means Song Lian and I aren't married yet. How dare they order me around like this then? 8. I tried to recall carefully, since too much time had passed. I couldn't remember it very clearly. Back then, I finally managed to get into university from the poor countryside. I had just studied for 1 year when a special era came. All college students stopped their studies and went to the countryside to support rural construction. Song Lian and I were assigned to Nanny Village in Shaanxi. Song Lian was lucky. This village happened to be his mother's hometown. His father died early. When his mother saw that her son had returned to his hometown, she immediately packed her bags and came along. With the care of 3 uncles in the village, Song Lian's life was much better than that of other educated youths. At first, I didn't want to marry him. I still wanted to go back to school. Back then, despite the ridicule and disdain from those around me, I would read books under the kitchen stove by the light of a kerosene lamp every day after washing the clothes. My mother quarreled with my father and then with my grandmother every day because of me. She was like a fighting rooster, arguing with everyone, just to protect my unrealistic dream. The day I received the admission notice, she was so happy that she shed tears. She looked at the notice over and over again and pressed it under the bedside table with frosted glass. I knew our little girl would make it. She got into university and will become a city person in the future. Having a job with the government, she won't have to do farm work in the fields anymore. No one expected that after putting in so much effort. I just ended up moving from a rural area in the south to the north. I was still working in the fields, still doing farm work. As the sun rose and set, I raised my head from the yellow earth and looked at my rough palms. Suddenly, I found that the formulas and poems that I used to know by heart were as hazy as the moon in the water. The college life in the ivory tower seemed to have become a distant dream. At that time, everyone thought they couldn't go back. There were slogans and mottos all over the walls, saying that we should build the desolate nanny into an oasis in the northwest. How could we go back if we didn't build it? This was even something that couldn't be accomplished within 1 generation. I began to accept my fate and face the reality. In the village, I thought Song Lian was more to my liking. And we could talk well together, so I got close to him, tried to please him, and finally married him as I wished. Unexpectedly, just 1 year after we got married, the policy suddenly changed, and all of us educated youths could return to the city, and we would even be assigned jobs. However, there were more people than available jobs. The first batch of job positions was in short supply, and we had to queue up and wait. Originally, I also had a chance. By chance, I was pregnant at that time. The comrade in the office looked at me with an expression. Comrade Guanyue, this position is very tough. You have to go to the workshop every day and be busy until midnight. You often have to climb those high iron frames. In your situation, it's not suitable. You should wait a bit. In the next batch, I'll arrange an easier job for you. When the next batch of jobs came, my eldest son was born. My mother-in-law, who had always been strong and healthy, suddenly suffered from a headache. She couldn't touch cold water and couldn't stand noise. I could only take care of the child myself and gave up the opportunity again. Then, I gave birth to my second son. The 2 noisy boys drained all my energy, and I no longer had any ambition. When the children were a bit older and sent to the nursery, my mother-in-law suddenly had a stroke. In those days, we couldn't hire a nanny, otherwise, we would be cursed with gossip, saying that you were a landlady or a reactionary. I could only take care of my mother-in-law. In those few years, I bought groceries, cooked, washed clothes, fetched medicine, wiped my mother-in-law's body, picked up the 2 children from school, supervised them doing their homework, tidied up the messy home, washed them and put them to bed. By then, it was already midnight. The days repeated mechanically. When I suddenly realized it, I saw a strange face in the mirror, half-white hair, deep wrinkles at the corners of my eyes. No more vitality on my face, and my empty eyes were full of weariness and numbness. I had suddenly grown old. How did time pass so quickly? It seemed that I had done a lot of things, but it also seemed that I had done nothing. In my pale and empty life, I lived as someone else's daughter-in-law, someone else's wife, and someone else's mother, but not as myself. The higher Song Lian's status became, the less I had my own name. Everyone called me Mrs. Song. What about Guanyue? 9. Guanyue, Guanyue. The wooden pestle came down heavily, pounding the dirty coarse cloth clothes whose color couldn't be distinguished. The water splashed onto the surface of my shoes. Sister Chunfeng winked at me. What are you standing there for? Come and wash the clothes together. I saw Song Lian's mother bring you a big basin. Come quickly. If you don't hurry up, you won't be able to finish washing them. Aunt Ho-Hop beside her pursed her lips. She really has the nerve. You're not even married yet. And she's already ordering you around like this. Guanyue, it's not that I'm criticizing you, but you have too good a temper. You'll suffer if you marry into their family. We should play hard to get and maintain some dignity." Another auntie beside them burst into laughter. "You're almost 30, an old girl. What dignity are you still maintaining? It's already good that someone wants you, not to mention washing clothes. Even if she asks you to wash underpants, you'll rush to do it." I stared at her for a moment and remembered that she was Jing Tieju's mother. A few years ago, she had asked a matchmaker to propose marriage to me, but I refused, so she held a grudge and would find opportunities to say sarcastic things from time to time. I smiled at her. "Let whoever wants to wash them do it. I don't have that spare time." After saying that, I picked up the hoe, held my head high, bypassed the well, and walked towards the collective field in the north. Tieju's mother was stunned for a moment and spat hard. "Pa, what are you pretending for? When Song Lian's mother loses her temper later, you'll be crying." Song Lian's mother was wielding a hoe and working vigorously in the field. Seeing me come so early, she stopped in surprise, wiped the sweat off with her headscarf. "Did you wash the clothes so quickly? Did you wash them carelessly? Did you use the pestle? You have to scrub off those mud stains." "It's not that I'm ahem. Not that I'm criticizing you, Guan Yue. You should be more careful when you work. Why are you always so careless?" The others in the field continued with their farm work, but they all pricked up their ears and looked at this side with a gossipy expression. Under the gaze of everyone, I carried the hoe and walked towards the few acres of land I was in charge of. "Mrs. Song, if you want something done, do it yourself. Only by working for yourself can you have enough food and clothing. From now on, you can do the work of your own family. I'll save my energy for building nanny village. I'm not a long-term laborer of your Song family." In those days, no one could refute the words in the quotations. When Mrs. Song heard me say this, her face immediately turned red with anger. She stammered you a few times. Finally, she slapped her thigh and cursed. "Don't you want to marry Song Lian anymore? My son is sick. As his future wife, what's wrong with sharing some of the work? Don't put labels on me casually. Our Song family won't want a lazy woman." Mrs. Song shouted loudly. When the villagers saw this, they came over to persuade me one after another. They said that she just had such an impatient temper. Since I was going to live a good life with Song Lian in the future, I shouldn't talk back to my mother-in-law. I sneered. "Mother-in-law, Song Lian and I are innocent. What kind of mother-in-law is she? Since everyone is here today, I'll make it clear, Song Lian and I only have the friendship of revolutionary comrades. I will definitely not marry him." As soon as I said this, everyone was greatly surprised. In the 1960s and 1970s, although arranged marriages were the mainstream in rural areas, free love was also becoming popular, especially in places like construction bases where there were many young people. Everyone knew that Song Lian and I were in a relationship. Mrs. Song had even found a marriage officiant and said that after the first month of the Lunar New Year, during the slack season in agriculture, she would arrange the wedding of Song Lian and me. Now that they heard me flatly deny it, everyone felt that something was wrong. Some people advised me, saying that it was understandable for young couples to have conflicts, but I couldn't talk nonsense in front of everyone. Song Lian had good looks and character and was very popular in the village. If I really made him angry and he left, I would regret it. Mrs. Song was so angry that she stamped her feet. "I haven't disliked you yet, but you're being picky. My son will be very successful in the future. Many city girls are eager to marry him. What right do you have to say you won't marry? We don't even want to marry you." She had always been hot-tempered. When she was extremely angry, she slapped her thigh and could curse out all kinds of unpleasant words. Seeing the commotion, some busybodies had already run to find Song Lian. "Just as well, you don't want to marry me off, and I don't want to marry. In the future, don't mention the matter between Song Lian and me." After saying this, I turned around and saw Song Lian standing on the ridge of the field. His young and energetic face had a familiar doting smile in his eyes. The next second, the smile froze on his face. Song Lian's face turned pale, and he staggered back a step. "Guan Yue, are you still angry with me?" Seeing his expression, I knew that Song Lian had also been reborn. After being together for 50 years, we knew each other too well. His posture, movements, eyes, and the scholarly air that came from living a comfortable life and being untouched by the world, as his students said. Professor Song looked noble, while Mrs. Song was different. I saw her bargaining with others at the vegetable market the other day. She was so vulgar. Song Lian was not only good-looking but also had an extraordinary temperament. Standing on the ridge of the field in a green military uniform, he was like a tall pine tree. making it impossible for the people beside him to look away. The crowd whispered in disgust. Why does Song Lian seem different from before? I think so too. He's especially handsome today. No wonder Guan Yue is so eager for him. She's not eager. Didn't she just say that she doesn't want to marry Song Lian? Is she bragging? She's throwing a tantrum now. With Mrs. Song's character, she'll probably have to kneel to get Song Lian back later. As soon as her son came, Mrs. Song had someone to rely on and became even more arrogant. Guan Yue, my Song Lian is right here. Do you have the guts to say those words again in front of him? I had already lowered my head and was waving the hoe vigorously. The hard soil mixed with broken ice was lifted up, and my words also splashed into Song Lian's heart like ice shavings. I, Guan Yue, will definitely not marry Song Lian in this life. I didn't look at him again. I only heard Song Lian coughing loudly, and his mother rushed over to support him excitedly. The crowd helped to take Song Lian back to the room, and the noise gradually faded away. After I finished my farm work, I watched Accountant You record my work points for me. Accountant You joked with me. Why did you suddenly break up with Song Lian, girl? Could it be that you're reluctant to part with the work points you've been doing every day? As he spoke, he flipped through the booklet and exclaimed that Song Lian had been sick for 10 days this month, but his work points were still full. As for me, I only had half of the work points. I was afraid that I wouldn't even have enough to eat. I had an idea in my mind. Accountant You, the work points are only settled at the end of the month. Can the work points I did for Song Lian before be recorded back in my own account? Accountant You was surprised. Wow, you two have quite a big conflict, don't you? Are you serious? Yes, I won't help him with his work anymore in the future. Hearing my firm answer, Accountant You hesitated for a moment and then nodded in agreement. All right, others may be afraid of the Jingning's 3 brothers, but I'm not. Uncle will stand up for you in this matter. If Mrs. Song doesn't agree, let her come and argue with me. The Jingning's 3 brothers were Song Lian's uncles. They were all tall and had some influence in the village. However, people in this era were still quite simple in their thinking. At most, they would take a small advantage and wouldn't make things difficult for others in important matters. After getting a positive answer, I felt greatly relieved. Being able to have enough to eat was the most important thing in this era. After a day of hard work, I returned home. As expected, Song Lian was waiting for me at the door. He clenched his fists and looked around warily. There were too many people just now, and it wasn't convenient to talk. Guan Yue, shall we go in and talk? I nodded. Song Lian followed me into the room. He coughed a few times and commanded me familiarly. Pour me a glass of water. I stood still and didn't move. Song Lian was stunned for a moment and then smiled bitterly. You've also been reborn, right? I knew it the first time I saw you just now. You had a very good temper when you were young. It's not like this at all. It's all because I spoiled you. How long are you going to be willful? I frowned when I heard this. Song Lian, I've told you several times, I'm not throwing a tantrum. I want to live my own life. I want to work. And I want to continue my academic research. I don't want to be trapped at home giving birth, taking care of children, and serving your mother. Don't you understand? Song Lian sneered. Seeing my displeased expression, he quickly pursed his lips and raised his hands as if in surrender. You're just used to living a good life. Do you think working is that comfortable? Do you think doing academic research is that easy? You can even burn a pancake. And you can't remember what vegetables to buy. What else can you? I interrupted Song Lian. If you say any more nonsense, get out. Song Lian sighed. You're like a child. I can't reason with you. All right. If you want to work so much, then go work for 2 years. You'll still come crying to me in the end. I pushed him impatiently. I have nothing to say to you. Get out. I want to read a book. Song Lian took the opportunity to grab my wrist and smiled. Guan Yu, I'm almost forgetting what you looked like when you were young. Let me take a closer look at you again. Under the dim light, his eyebrows and eyes were filled with a gentle look. Still carrying the old friendship, my heart suddenly skipped a few beats. After being married for so many years, it would be a lie to say that I have no feelings for Song Lian. It was precisely these tender moments that supported me through year after year of dull and boring marriage. Whenever I was unhappy, looking at Song Lian's face, most of my anger would dissipate. But this is also the biggest difference between him and me. When there were conflicts, after Song Lian coaxed me, I would give in, and life would return to its peaceful state. It seems that Song Lian would never give in because of me. He would say touching love words with the most gentle expression on his face, but what he handed over was a soft knife. Just listen to Mom, Go and apologize to him. This sum of money must be lent to my younger brother. Just do it for my sake, okay?" The poison was wrapped in icing, and the knife was wrapped in a beautiful ribbon. One knife after another cut off my edges and corners and smoothed out my self-esteem. I thought that was love. Only after living a whole life did I see clearly that it was just a means for men to achieve their goals. Looking at Song Lian's face leaning towards me, I took a deep breath and slapped him hard on the cheek. "Are you being a pervert? Get out." I pushed Song Lian out of the door and closed the door tightly. Song Lian is a person with extremely strong self-esteem. In all these years of marriage, even when we quarreled, I had never shouted at him. I just spoke a little more quickly. Let alone hitting him. Now that he had been slapped by me, he was so angry that he didn't show up in front of me for several days. I also got some peace and quiet. I went to work on time every day and read books by the light of an oil lamp at night. I read and reread those college textbooks over and over again. The young mind is really efficient. I could memorize them after reading them a few times. "I'm not the fool who can't do anything," as Song Lian said. I was filled with excitement and became more and more yearning for the life back in Beijing. Until the end of the month, the peace was broken. Song Lian's mother came to the door aggressively. I was reading a book in front of the lamp when she snatched the book from my hand and cursed, "You heartless woman, you took away Song Lian's work points. What will he eat? He treats you so well, and you don't even care about his well-being. Do you really not want to marry him?" My face turned cold. "I've said it many times, I have nothing to do with him. Please don't bother me in the future." Song Lian's mother was so angry that she was shaking, and her finger almost poked at the tip of my nose. "Guan Yu, you're crazy. Have you considered Baiwen and Belan when you do this? If you don't marry Song Lian, how can you get pregnant next year? And how can Baiwen be reincarnated?" I was stunned. "Are you reborn too? No wonder." I vaguely remembered that before I married Song Lian. His mother was quite polite to me and didn't order me around so arrogantly and take it for granted that I should do the work. Song Lian's mother nodded angrily. "Yes, I also have the memories of my previous life. To be honest, I don't think much of you at all. My Song Lian is so promising. I can have any daughter-in-law I want. It's just for the sake of my 2 grandsons that I agreed to let him marry you again. But look at you, you're putting on airs. You don't want to marry my son. A great professor. Who else do you want to marry?" "I don't want to marry anyone. I want to go back to Beijing and continue working." I had repeated these words several times and had already lost my patience. "Can't Song Lian marry another woman? Can you please stop bothering me?" Seeing my tough attitude, Song Lian's mother rolled her eyes and her tone softened again. "You're still angry about the fact that I didn't agree to take care of Baiwen, right? I really have a headache. It's not fake. If you really want to work, it's okay. First, get married, have the baby, and this time I'll take good care of my health and help you take care of the child." I pointed my finger towards the door. "If you don't go out, I'll call for help. Let's see how long you can be so stubborn." Seeing that I wouldn't be swayed by either soft or harsh words, Song Lian's mother angrily cursed at me and left in a huff. From that day on, I never did any work for Song Lian again. I earned my own work points and filled my own stomach. Song Lian's mother scolded me a few times. After being stopped by Song Lian, she would only roll her eyes at me when she saw me and would gossip about me with Tieju's mother. Song Lian came to find me many times. At first, he gave a bitter smile when facing my cold expression, but later he gradually became impatient. "You're really going too far with your temper, Guan Yu. My patience also has its limits. Don't you regret it later?" I didn't even bother to say a single word to him. Half a year passed by in the blink of an eye. Soon, I received a notice from Beijing. The educated youths who had gone to the countryside could finally return to the city. This time, my job opportunity came after Song Lian's. Just like in his previous life, he chose an easy job and became a teacher at a high school. I could only go to the chemical factory and do the hardest and most tiring work at the grassroots level in the workshop. Song Lian frowned. "Director Zhou, this isn't appropriate, is it? She's a woman, and the workshop has a strong smell. What's she doing at the grassroots level? Please look again. Is there any easier position?" Song Lian was used to being a professor, and he still hadn't changed his bossy tone. When Director Zhou heard this, he immediately became unhappy. "Hey, do you think this is your home? You can decide what job to take. Are you the mayor or the secretary of the party committee? There are plenty of people queuing up behind. Take it or leave it." I quickly interrupted. "Director Zhou, I'm willing to do this job. Don't pay attention to him. Before I could finish speaking, Song Lian pulled me out of the office. Guan Yu, there should be a limit to your nonsense. Song Lian had a serious expression and lectured me as he used to. The workshop of the chemical factory is not good for your health. Don't you want to get pregnant in the next few years? Baiwen is waiting for us. It was all about getting pregnant and Baiwen again. I completely lost my patience. Song Lian, are you crazy? I've said it, I won't marry you. There's no Baiwen, no Balan, there's only me. Can't you understand human language? Song Lian was furious. Over this past year, I've tolerated you time and time again. I agreed that you could work, but you can't be so selfish. Don't you even want the child? What on earth do you want to do? What did I want to do? I just wanted to be myself. Looking at Song Lian with a fierce expression, I only felt a deep sense of powerlessness welling up from the bottom of my heart. Song Lian always said that a husband's glory and a son's future were my crown, but I knew clearly that they weren't. They belonged to them. And in fact, I had nothing, since getting married. I had been reduced to nothing, becoming their nourishment. They sucked my blood, took up all of my time and energy, and bloomed dazzling flowers. Everyone could only see the flowers. Who would care about the soil in the pot? Occasionally, someone would praise, saying that this soil was good for raising people. Should I be grateful for that? Originally, I could have been a blooming flower too. Song Lian was still chattering in my ear, accusing me of being selfish and heartless. I could only raise my hand. Don't force me to slap you in public. Song Lian was shocked and finally shut up. I got the job as I wished. From then on, he was glorious and decent as a teacher. I was in a sorry state, becoming an ordinary female worker in the workshop of the chemical factory who wore a mask all day long and was covered in dust. When Song Lian's mother found out, she almost burst out laughing. I knew it. What could she achieve? In her previous life, she benefited from you. But she didn't cherish it. How hard it is in that chemical factory. Just wait. She won't be able to hold on for 3 months and will come crying and begging us to marry her. She was wrong. I stayed in the chemical factory for 2 years, while working hard. I also prepared for the postgraduate entrance examination. I originally majored in chemical engineering in college, and I worked hard and actively. I was always rated as a March 8th Red Banner pacesetter every time. After being admitted to postgraduate school, the factory decided to send me to study at public expense. Coincidentally, Song Lian also took the postgraduate entrance examination of Huaqing University, and we met again on the university campus. Song Lian was very surprised. Guan Yu, why are you here? You came to find me, right? You knew I was studying here. Song Lian looked me up and down and puffed out his chest a little proudly. In my previous life, the school I attended was much worse than Huaqing University. Not just anyone can come here. After finishing my master's degree, I'm going to stay here as a teacher. I will go further than in my previous life. What about you? Couldn't you stand it in the factory anymore? Song Lian curled the corners of his mouth. I told you, it's quite impressive that you could hold on for 2 years. There were many lush trees by the lotus pond, spreading out a green dome above Song Lian's head. The mottled branches and leaves cast crisscrossed shadows above his handsome brow bones. Song Lian smiled and slowly reached out his hand to me. Over these 2 years, I've been waiting for you. As long as you obediently admit your mistake, my mother. The bell rang, and I hurriedly pushed him away. Class is starting. Excuse me. Behind me, Song Lian was left with an expression of shock that was out of control. Song Lian finally accepted the reality and admitted that I was also a postgraduate student of Huaqing University at the annual freshman assembly. As a representative, I went on stage to give a speech, under the spotlight. For the first time, it was me standing on the stage while he sat in the audience, squinting his eyes and looking at me with a look full of confusion and disbelief. In 2 lifetimes, he finally saw me. He no longer regarded me as an accessory, no longer looked down on me, but treated me as an equal, and even looked up at me a little, looking at me from below. Song Lian was quite emotional. Guan Yu, I think I know what you want. You've always been a competitive person. I shouldn't have said those things to you. I said you were stupid, but actually I liked you in my heart. Now, I admit that you're not stupid at all. Your postgraduate entrance examination score is much higher than mine. You're very capable. I admit that you're smart. Is that okay? Weren't your efforts over these years just to prove this to me? I held my books and walked around him. Song Lian, you don't understand at all. I didn't do it for you to see. This is not enough. It's far from enough. I want the whole world to see me. Song Lian stood there, stunned. After a moment, His gaze swept over the heroic young man at the entrance of the library, and he suddenly understood. You lied to me, I knew it. You came here for Lin Jiaji, right? Lin Jiaji is 8 years younger than me. In his previous life, he entered the Chinese Academy of Sciences at a young age and achieved much more than Song Lian. When I saw him on the news, I even forgot about the tea I was pouring, and the hot water poured onto Song Lian's hand. The Institute of Chemistry of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. It's the highest place that every chemistry student can reach. I really envied that. Song Lian thought I was looking at Lin Jiaji and was so angry that he jumped up and down. How old are you? Aren't you ashamed to look at a young man like that? Now, decades of speculation had been confirmed. Song Lian's face turned pale, and his lips were trembling with anger. You've been thinking about him for so long. You're simply, you. Lin Jiaji was very lucky. During the turbulent years, he was in junior high school. Classes were suspended. And he wandered around the streets having fun. He didn't waste so many years in the countryside like us. He was still young when he was studying for a postgraduate degree and was in his prime. We were in the same class. Whenever he saw me, he would always call me senior sister respectfully. Senior sister, I've saved the seat for you. Are we still reading until 9 o'clock today? Shall I go and get your dinner? Song Lian rushed over and grabbed his collar. Guan Yu is my wife, you little gigolo. Don't even think about it. Lin Jiaji didn't show any weakness and punched him in the nose. Who's a gigolo? You're the gigolo. Are you crazy? The two of them got into a fight. As expected, each of them was scolded. Fortunately, they didn't receive any punishment because they admitted their mistakes sincerely. Lin Jiaji also learned about the past between me and Song Lian in the countryside because of this. He was very disdainful of it. What a small-minded person. A man like this should be dumped. I regarded this as the most ordinary little episode, but Song Lian was greatly affected by it and almost couldn't recover. Originally, I had told him many times that I wasn't interested in him and didn't want to marry him. He never took it seriously, but when Lin Jiaji appeared, he completely believed it. Perhaps, in his opinion, the only thing that could defeat a man was another man. Song Lian completely broke down and blocked me downstairs in the dormitory with red eyes. Guan Yu. His voice was choked with sobs, and he was crying so hard that he could hardly speak. 50 years of marriage. You tell me, do you really not care about me at all? Weren't we happy together? How could you fall in love with someone else? How could you? It's me who's a professor. I didn't despise you for being stupid or incompetent. Why are you the one abandoning me? His high self-esteem was shattered into pieces, and he couldn't bear it. I just looked at him calmly. I'm not stupid, and I'm not incompetent either. You think I'm stupid because in the name of love, you confined me to the fields I wasn't good at and forced me to do things I wasn't good at. I served your whole family, old and young, for 50 years. It's you who were happy, not me. Song Lian clenched his fists. You weren't happy. Over all these years, how have I wronged you? Didn't I starve you? Didn't I provide for your food and clothing? It was ridiculous. Originally, I could have had my own job. No matter whom I married, I wouldn't starve myself. How could he think that the things I originally had were his gifts? When the conversation is not going well, even half a sentence is too much. I was too lazy to pay attention to Song Lian anymore. I went back to the dormitory and went to bed early. My roommate said that he had stood downstairs for most of the night and asked me to go and persuade him. It's so windy outside. Don't let him get sick from the wind. The stronger the wind, the better. Maybe it can blow some sense into his pedantic head. It was not until the security guards on patrol at the school drove Song Lian away. The next day, Song Lian didn't show up. Instead, his mother came to make a scene. She said that he had wasted so many years for me. And now he was already 30 years old. If he didn't get married soon, I would make the Song family have no descendants. If you want to have a baby, go find someone else. The bloodline of your Song family has nothing to do with me at all. Looking at my indifferent and tough attitude, Song Lian's mother burst into tears. I misjudged you. I thought you were an honest person. It turns out that you've always looked down on our Song Lian. You have no ability at all. Yet you have such lofty ambitions. I'll just wait and see who will marry an old maid like you. Without our Song Lian, who would want you? Just as she finished speaking, Lin Jiaji poked his head in from outside the door. Guan Yu, would you do me the honor of going to the movies with me tonight? Song Lian's mother's face froze. She mumbled something in her throat for a long time, then suddenly slapped her thigh. You're that gigolo. You're breaking up a family. You. Lin Jiaji gave a cold snort. Watch your mouth. I just beat up Song Lian yesterday. don't push me to hit you too. I don't have the rule of not hitting women. When Lin Jiaji was young, he had a bit of a ruffian air. He was half a head taller than Song Lian. He wore a green military uniform, with his sleeves rolled up to his shoulders, revealing his well-defined muscles. Song Lian's mother shrank her neck. Son, don't be deceived by her. She's already 30 years old this year. She's been married and has even given birth to 2 sons, Lin Jiaji said. So what? I just like women older than me. Mom, stop making a scene. Song Lian's face was deathly pale. He stumbled in and dragged his mother away. He took a hasty glance at me and shed tears. Guan Yu, since you want to choose him, I'll let you have your way. After the mother and son left, I turned around helplessly and looked at Lin Jiaji. What are you getting involved for? Did you do it on purpose to make Song Lian angry? Lin Jiaji raised his chin. Yeah, I want to make him mad. I was silent for a moment and felt that I still needed to explain. I haven't given birth to any children. Lin Jiaji's eyes lit up, and the smile on his lips gradually widened. I don't care, Guan Yu. I interrupted him. I think there are some parts of that thesis you wrote that don't seem right. I understood what Lin Jiaji meant, but I don't have the time now. Nor the energy to spare for romantic affairs. Lin Jiaji lowered his eyes in disappointment. Okay, we'll talk about it later then, half out of disappointment and half as revenge on me. After that, Song Lian quickly married a girl from the city. She had a good family background and was also very pretty. A year passed, and the 2 of them had a lovely son. Song Lian regained some of his vitality and deliberately showed off his son in front of me by holding him. Guan Yu, when are you and Lin Jiaji going to get married? At that time, I was already studying for a doctorate at Huaqing University. However, Song Lian didn't keep up with the rhythm of his previous life. The girl from the city also had a decent job and refused to give up her golden for the sake of the child. She went to and from work as usual and completely left the child to Song Lian's mother. Song Lian's mother's headache flared up again, and the whole family was in chaos. Since there was really no one to take care of the child, Song Lian could only take care of the child while going to work, so naturally, he didn't have extra time to read books. His plan to pursue a doctorate was delayed. Song Lian didn't care too much. It was just a delay of 2 or 3 years, and it didn't matter much. After he graduated, he successfully stayed on as a teacher at the university. Now he was a lecturer at Huaqing University. And his starting point was much higher than in his previous life. At worst, he would just follow the original path again. He could afford to wait. He didn't know what kind of whirlpool those trivial family matters and everyday nuisances could drag a person into. At this moment, he was still full of enthusiasm and thought he was a winner. You're not young anymore either. You should urge him. If it's a few years later, you won't even be able to have a child. I buried my head in writing notes. He went to pick up his girlfriend to go to the movies, Lin Jiaji, and I have no relationship at all. Song Lian was greatly surprised. You're not together. That's not right. I heard Lin Jiaji say that he has feelings for you. Yes, I rejected him. I'm focused on my studies now and don't have the time to think about other things. Song Lian opened his eyes wide, looking completely puzzled. Wait, Guan Yu. I really don't understand you anymore. Why are you doing this? You're a woman. Don't you want a family, children, or even a lover? Without being loved, how lonely and solitary your life will be. I stopped writing and looked at him seriously. Does a woman have to have love? From childhood to adulthood, all the films, TV works, novels, and the social atmosphere have been instilling this proposition in women. Little girls grow up with the longing for a Prince Charming. But the dreams of little boys are to go on adventures, to explore the distant stars and the vast sea. But why? Is love really that important for women? Without love, can't a woman find self-consistency, have an independent and complete inner core? And can't she live a peaceful and happy life alone? I married for love. I loved Song Lian my whole life. To be fair, Song Lian also loved me. Did I gain happiness? His love meant that I had to bear children for him, take care of the household, leave my familiar family and come to a completely strange family, smooth out my edges and corners, and get covered in blood and scars to fit in with them. Compared with most women, I've already had a relatively good life, but I'm still not happy. Only those who benefit from the existing situation will keep promoting it, making you make choices that are beneficial to them. Why do I have to abide by this game rule? Song Lian was stunned for a moment, and then he showed his familiar sneer. Without love, what should a woman want? Power, status, money, and reputation. These are what women have been lacking the most for thousands of years. I also sneered. Forget it, you won't understand even if I tell you. I'm going to study abroad for a few years. We probably won't see each other again in the future." I walked a long way. Song Lian was still holding the child, looking dazed and frozen in place. When I returned after completing my studies abroad, in just 2 years, I overcame a technical problem and won a national award. In the same year, I joined the Chinese Academy of Sciences and won a large number of international honors. At that time, I was just over 40 years old. A woman at 40 is like a flower, but Song Lian had already been worn out like rotten bean curd. He was exhausted from being tormented by his 2 sons and had long given up the idea of studying. He was still a lecturer, but he often made mistakes. The school leaders talked to him several times, saying that if he continued to mislead students like this, he should be transferred to an idle position in the office. When he was so scolded that he couldn't lift his head, there was a commotion in the office. The office director rushed out in one stride and shook my hand warmly. "Professor Guan, oh, didn't we agree that I would send someone to pick you up at the airport at 4 o'clock in the afternoon? Why did you come here yourself?" "It's all the same, it's also convenient for me to drive." I smiled politely. When I turned my head, I saw Song Lian with a pale face, shrugging his shoulders and trying his best to make himself disappear. "Mr. Song is here too." The director was surprised. "Do you know each other?" I nodded. "Yes, we're old acquaintances." The director smiled. "I see, Mr. Song, then let's have a casual dinner together tonight. We're going to give Professor Guan a welcome dinner. From this year on, she will be the honorary professor of our school." Song Lian's eyes shook, and his lips trembled slightly. He stared at me, unable to say a word for a long time. After a while, he embarrassedly lowered his head. "No need, I still have to pick up my 2 sons from school today." Another day, another day. Song Lian stumbled out of the office. The director curled his lips behind him. "He's so unrefined. A grown man has been dragged down like this by family matters, not to mention the wife he married she's really nice. I know her. She's a very nice person and has a strong sense of ambition in her work. It's taken for granted that a woman is burdened by her family. When these trivial matters fall on a man, everyone will feel sorry for him and blame that woman. But what's her fault? She's just doing what all men would do." The director forced a smile and agreed. Since even Professor Guan approves, she should indeed be very good, haha. On the day I won the Nobel Prize, the school held a very grand press conference. I sat on the stage. Song Lian's family sat in the audience. Song Lian's mother looked at me with hatred in her eyes. "What's so great about her? She's old and still unwanted." Song Lian's 2 sons retorted. "Grandma, are you crazy? At her level, what man is worthy of her?" Song Lian's mother snorted angrily. "What level? I used to ask her to wash the dishes and clothes, and she didn't dare to say a word. She wouldn't dare to go right when I told her to go left. You must be suffering from dementia. Dad, take Grandma to the hospital for a checkup." Song Lian's mother was extremely angry. "How can you 2 talk to Grandma like that? You've been spoiled by your mother. You're not good at studying. You can't even get into an ordinary high school. My previous grandson graduated from Huaqing University. Do you even deserve to be called Balan and Bowen? You 2 are good for nothings." Song Lian's wife wasn't going to put up with her. She immediately retorted. "What do you mean I spoiled them? Mom, you can't be so ungrateful. Didn't my mom take care of you when you had a stroke a few years ago? How can you be so ungrateful?" It seemed that the 2 sides were about to start arguing again. People in the audience all looked at them, and the security guards also walked in this direction. Song Lian blushed with embarrassment. "Stop making a racket. What kind of place is this? If you keep arguing, get out of here." Finally, it quieted down. Song Lian raised his head and looked at me under the spotlight. There were faint tears in his eyes. When it came to the audience's question and answer session, Song Lian couldn't wait to stand up and grab the microphone. "Guan Yu, Professor Guan, I want to ask you." Song Lian's gaze circled around his 2 sons and then he asked me with a hint of relief. "Do you think your life is complete? Aren't you really regretful that you didn't get married in this life and don't have your own children to carry on your legacy?" I raised my head and looked at the bright red banner hanging above the auditorium. "Warmly congratulate Chinese scientist Guan Yu on winning the Nobel Prize." Chinese scientist, Guan Yu. I curved my lips. "Yes, I don't have my own children, but I have them." I stretched out my hand and pointed to the audience. Most of them were students majoring in my field. They read the books I wrote, the papers I wrote, and listened to my lectures. They don't look like me, but they think like me. I don't have children to inherit my genes, but I have students to inherit my thoughts. In the long river of time, genes may be interrupted, but brilliant civilizations will last forever. My life is very fulfilling. Thunderous applause rang out in the auditorium. It lasted for a long time. Epilogue 1. I walked out of the hotel arm in arm with my young boyfriend and accidentally bumped into Song Lian. Song Lian was stunned for a few seconds, his eyes full of disbelief. Didn't you say that you don't need love? I shrugged. Not having men in my eyes doesn't mean not having men by my side, now that my career has reached its peak. The tight string in me has relaxed. It's understandable to have some entertainment. I'm just an ordinary person and also have worldly physical desires. Don't expect me to be a saint just because I've achieved great success in my career. The path that successful women walk is already difficult enough. Don't forcefully add moral labels to us. A look of being deceived flashed across Song Lian's face. How can you be so shameless? You're corrupting public morals, you. Before he could finish speaking, several security guards rushed over nervously. Professor Guan, are you okay? Who is this person? Do you want us to drive him away? I nodded indifferently. He's a crazy fan. Song Lian was quickly dragged away. His thoughts were really ridiculous. When a man reaches the peak of power and becomes an emperor with 3,000 concubines in his harem, no one will accuse him of corrupting public morals. Why can't a woman do the same? This is the old society's discipline for women. I took care of the household affairs, took care of Song Lian's sick mother, and raised 2 children. I look forward to the day when everyone takes this as a matter of course. Epilogue 2. When I was invited to give a lecture at a certain university, I met a very enthusiastic student. Her name was Zhou Hafeng. She was so excited that she waved her arms and pushed through the crowd to get in front of me, asking me to sign her notebook. Professor Guan, you have such a good temperament. I was completely mesmerized when I listened to your lecture. What you said was so great. Zhou Hafeng's face was flushed, and she boldly joked, if you were a man, I really want to marry you. The young girl's eyes were shining brightly, full of admiration and longing. I took her notebook and shook my head with a smile. Don't marry me, be me. The essence of a girl's admiration for the strong is also a longing for power and success. But the social discipline that exists everywhere from childhood to adulthood makes them only want to be the ones illuminated by the moonlight. They never think that when the light shines on you, you can indeed be seen, but when the light moves away, you have nothing. You should become the moon. Zhou Hafeng was stunned and looked down at the name on the notebook in a daze. Guan Yu. Story 2. For a long time, my entrepreneur boyfriend and I subsisted on plain steamed buns in our rented apartment until one day, I saw his name on a list of young entrepreneurs. Not only was he the CEO of a rival company, but he was also worth billions. On my birthday, my boyfriend used a generic, unpackaged supermarket cake for my birthday cake. He inserted a candle into the small cake, smaller than my palm, that he had freed from its vacuum packaging, and turned off the lights, telling me to make a wish. I stared at the flickering candle in the dark. Eventually, I reached out and tousled his fuzzy hair, then vigorously rubbed his slightly coarse but pleasantly textured short hair. Wang Chingqing, this is what you bring for my birthday cake. Do you think you're being funny? In the dark, he grabbed my wrist and then simply pulled me into his embrace. But last year, when I ordered a cake for your birthday, you scolded me for wasting money. His voice carried a hint of hurt. This year, I didn't waste money. How good are these unpackaged French-style cakes? Cheap, economical, and we can eat them for 3 more days. 2. Me and my boyfriend, Wang Chingqing. We are known as the poor couple of Building 21, Unit 4 in our complex, perhaps because I had once vigilantly watched over the fish sold by our neighbor, Wang Dajia, at the supermarket downstairs. So, she always loudly proclaims in the hallways that I am a young person who's unambitious and only after cheap deals. I leaned on the sofa, trying to use my feet to adjust the oscillating fan. Suddenly, someone grabbed my ankle. Wang Chingqing held my ankle with one hand while adjusting the fan's angle with the other. Don't sit in the draft all day, you'll catch a cold. A cold? I tugged at my collar to show him, I'm sweating like this, and you're talking to me about catching a cold. He lifted his thin eyelids to look at me, and I felt that if it weren't for his handsome face, I'd have surely kicked him. So, women really are contradictory creatures. He gave me a supermarket cake for my birthday, and I was still mad, but I didn't say anything. I wanted him to figure out why on his own. I watched as he gently released my ankle and slowly moved closer. And those eyes, growing increasingly dim, after 5 years with Wang Chingqing, I know him too well. I quickly grabbed a cushion to shield my chest. Listen, Wang Chingqing, not today. I'm not in the mood. Suddenly, my wrist was pulled. When I opened my eyes, there was a small watch on it, quite pretty. 3. This really was the most beautiful watch I had ever seen. It had many small, diamond-like details that sparkled as I moved my hand. Of course, I didn't actually think they were real diamonds. I tapped the arm of the person next to me. Hey, how much was this watch? He glanced at the watch on my wrist and then replied, 200 or 300, bought it online. Oh, I nodded, turned off the lights to save electricity, leaving only the TV on. I admired my new watch in the flickering light of the TV, its tiny, brilliant lights shimmering like a galaxy. Such a beautiful watch, and not even expensive. I was even more pleased, and I leaned over and kissed the corner of the mouth of the person next to me. He raised his eyebrows, and then, what happened next, went along with the TV and the gently swaying fan. It didn't matter anymore. The next day, when I went to work, I wore that watch. It was a delicate lady's watch, adorned with tiny diamonds that sparkled brilliantly under the sunlight. My colleague, Xiao Lu, sitting next to me noticed it and playfully nudged my shoulder with a grin. Did your boyfriend give it to you? I nodded, though in truth, I'm quite the social butterfly. Most of my friends knew I had a boyfriend who was currently trying to start his own business. It looks really nice, must be expensive, right? I shook my head, about to say it was just 200 or 300 online, then another sharp, piercing voice chimed in, not expensive. After all, it's a fake watch. I always felt that Lin Yuyu wasn't here to work, but rather to strut her stuff on a runway. As she approached, a strong scent of perfume wafted from her. Flipping her hair, she showed us her phone. On the screen was a picture of a watch identical to the one on my wrist. The price tag underneath read, 2859, 999 yuan. That price was something I'd have to count for a while to comprehend. Your poor boyfriend could never make that much money in his lifetime, could he? She glanced at me sideways. I looked down at my wristwatch and nodded. Right, this watch is really just 200 or 300, and the little diamonds might even be glass, but what can I do? My boyfriend only has 200 or 300, so he bought me this watch. He's faithful, and he treats me well. Wasn't your boyfriend the one who, in front of everyone last time, came in with his arms around two girls? Lin Yuyu's boyfriend is the son of one of our company's directors, a typical rich playboy, known for his flirtations, and Lin Yuyu had put in a lot of effort to latch onto him. My words evidently stung her. Her face alternated between pale and flushed. I don't even know where you get the nerve to wear a fake watch. You just love knockoffs, don't you? Isn't that disgusting? She was clearly flustered, but I wasn't one to back down. I'll wear whatever I want. It's none of your business. If you think it's disgusting, I'll wear 100 yuan knockoff tomorrow. I'll hang them on the wall, right in front of you. There's a saying, shamelessness is invincible. I think Lin Yuyu nearly choked with fury because of me, but perhaps it was fate playing tricks, because on my way home from work, I ran into Lin Yuyu again. At that moment, she looked as if she could almost hook her smile to the sky. Her boyfriend had come to pick her up in his convertible Maserati. Of course, that alone wouldn't have made her so triumphantly boastful. The key was, parked beside her boyfriend's sports car, was my boyfriend's little electric scooter. As she passed by, Lin Yuyu almost seemed to wish she could crush her high heels, getting into the car. She even waved at me. Bye-bye, oh Lu Huan. You must have a long way to go on that little electric scooter. Hope it doesn't run out of power halfway. As I watched them drive off, I sat on the back seat of Wang Qingqing's little scooter. Someone's waist felt very comforting, and I suppose that was my only consolation right now. What's wrong? Wang Qingqing raised an eyebrow and asked me. I told him it was nothing, and asked him to keep riding. The evening breeze was actually quite soothing, and sometimes the shadow of the towering skyscrapers can be truly awe-inspiring. But the real kicker, when I saw the traffic jam during rush hour, and Lin Yuyu and their sports car stuck in the middle of it, I couldn't help but laugh. Clearly, they had been stuck there impatiently for quite some time, so I waved at them from the back seat of my little electric scooter. I threw her words back at her. Bye-bye. We sped off, riding through the streets. I laughed so hard I was bending forward and backward. Wang Qingqing, slightly exasperated, told me to sit properly. Do you know, as the wind whistled past, I wrapped my arms around his waist and spoke to him. There are two types of people I hate in this life. One is the rich, the other is liars. Suddenly, the electric scooter braked sharply, and I bumped into his back. Rubbing my nose, I pinched his waist in annoyance. What's up? The man paused for a moment, then shook his head. It's nothing. The light bulb at home was broken. As I looked up, He skillfully climbed onto the chair and the dining table to replace the bulb that wouldn't light up. Wang Ching, tell me. I fiddled with the packaging of the new bulb, aimlessly nagging him. Do you think rich people are superior? As his pale fingers screwed in the bulb, I suddenly remembered. At the beginning of our relationship, he also knew nothing about these things. One thunderous night, the power went out suddenly, and we huddled in the corner of the living room. Only to realize the next day that it was just the circuit breaker that hadn't been switched on. Since then, he had started learning to fix these things. After he fixed the light, he nodded for me to turn it on. I pressed the switch, and after a flicker or two, the living room was bright again. The man jumped down. He took a couple of sips from the glass I had just used. His Adam's apple moved up and down, quite seductively. Seeing that I kept staring at him, he sighed and responded. Don't overthink it, everyone is equal. Oh, then Wang Ching. He glanced at me with a lift of his thin eyelids as he drank water. When are we getting married? He almost spit out his water. I knew my timing was off. He was starting a business, short on money, and my mother said, not looking for a perfect match, but at least the man I marry should be able to afford a beef noodle breakfast costing 20 yuan every morning. Right now, let alone beef noodles. Even a bowl of plain vegetable noodles for 7 or 8 yuan was a consideration for us. Huan, about this, he habitually thought over it, tapping his fingers on the table. I need to prepare. Yes, he needed to prepare, and I actually have a lot of faith in Wang Ching. Although he hasn't achieved much in the past few years and has been poor alongside me, he was a brilliant student in college, a well-known talent in our school. Even that stern professor affirmed that he would achieve great things in the future, and so, the matter of marriage was once again put on hold. Before going to sleep, I flipped through the calendar. Wang Ching and I had been together for over 5 years, but we still hadn't met each other's parents. I curled up in the soft, cozy bed, calculating how much money I could save after everyday expenses. His backpack was almost worn through, and I wanted to get him a new one before the year was out. Wang Ching starts work earlier than I do. As I stirred my thin porridge with chopsticks, tousling my hair, he hugged me from behind as usual and kissed me. He kisses me in a different spot each day. Today it was on the tip of my ear. He should have left after the kiss, but he lingered, leaning on the table for quite some time. After a pause, he asked, Huan, do you really hate liars that much? Sometimes his questions come out of nowhere. I nodded and tugged at his tie, squinting at him. Wang Ching, are you hiding something from me? His gaze was deep. When I pulled him closer, he looked at me without restraint. He smiled like a sly fox. No, wifey, he's definitely hiding something, but I couldn't figure out what. Like usual, I slid into my office seat just before the clock-in deadline, but today, there was something unusual on my desk, a gift box containing a lady's handbag. No one answered when I asked whose it was. Lin Yuyu, who was quite arrogant the day before, now looked at me as if I were her sworn enemy. I was utterly confused. Then someone gently tapped on my desk. Hi, I picked this bag for you, hope you like it. The one propping on the desk and smiling at me with a lifted fringe was Lin Yuyu's boyfriend, a company executive and a rich second generation. Lin Yuyu looked so annoyed, it was as if he wasn't her boyfriend at all. But my impression of him could be summed up in 9 words, the company's foolish rich second generation. Judging his intelligence by human standards wouldn't be appropriate. He'd be better measured against a primate. Clearly, something went wrong yesterday on that Maserati. He took an interest in me, who was sitting on the back of an electric scooter. My day was extremely annoying. It seemed wherever I went, he had to follow, even saying, "Woman, you've caught my attention." When I came out of the ladies' room and saw him still standing there with his arms crossed, I couldn't take it anymore. Mr. Chin, I'm sorry, but I have a boyfriend. Oh, but you're not married yet, are you? I rolled my eyes at him, but he kept talking calmly. There's a dinner party tonight, join me. I ignored him and walked away in my high heels. It seems like one unpleasant thing follows another. This afternoon, Wang Ching told me he had a dinner party and wouldn't be home for dinner. I sent him a sulking cat emoji in annoyance, and he replied with a puppy emoji that seemed to brace for a scolding. Suddenly, I heard the sound of a car horn behind me. A car enthusiast friend once told me that you could tell the price range of a sports car just by its horn, but I thought the sports car Chin drove was the worst. The rich second generation who had been bothering me all day was now slowly driving his sports car behind me. Didn't I tell you to join me at a dinner party? The sun had set and he was still wearing sunglasses. I thought he must be out of his mind. Miss Liu, I can't help it if you don't respond to me, but I don't want to get fired, do you? As I settled into the passenger seat of his Maserati, I was reminded of last night's conversation with Wang Chenqing. Are the wealthy really a cut above the rest? For someone like me, gripped by the throat of money, the answer is yes. I thought Qin Chen was going to take me to some work-related dinner, but apparently, I underestimated just how shameless he could be. He brought me to a private club. The lobby was quite upscale, but my impression of such places was only that the prices were ludicrously high for fools to pay, and luxury cars came and went as if they didn't cost a penny. A few pretentious garden scenes were set up, and they charged you an exorbitant fee as if it were a tax on your intelligence. However, it wasn't my wallet being drained. No matter the cost, I was indifferent. I had the misfortune of witnessing how a rich young heir could spend money like water, and soon realized, Qin Chen probably wanted to get me drunk, but he likely didn't know. I've been able to outdrink adults since I was 15 during New Year's visits. I picked up the bottle, ready for more. When I caught sight of a circle of men slumped around, Qin Chen was slurring something, arm around his cronies, guard the drink, tisk, not a single one who could really hold their liquor. I stood up, looking for the restroom. The club had rented out an entire courtyard. It looked small from the outside but was actually quite complex inside. At first, I couldn't find my way. Later, I couldn't keep walking, because I saw someone who looked strikingly similar to Wang Chenqing. I feared my vision was blurred from drinking too much, so I paused and followed him. He was with 2 other men. I took a deep breath. At our company's annual meeting, we always invited important figures, and I remembered Li He because he was young, and he managed his family's company efficiently. At that moment, this distinguished man was bending slightly to light Wang Chenqing's cigarette. I stepped forward to see if it really was Wang Chenqing. I bumped into a small ornamental pile of pebbles. The noise wasn't loud, but the courtyard was very quiet at night. Suddenly, I found myself locking eyes with the 3 of them, as I confirmed that the man in the suit and tie, who was being nodded and bowed at, was indeed Wang Chenqing. He immediately spat out his cigarette and quickly passed it to someone next to him. He explained in one breath, "I'm not smoking, honey." It was him. The person next to him almost dropped his lighter in shock. Then Wang Chenqing patted his shoulder and bowed his head with a smile. "Mr. Li, thank you for the cooperation. I'll contact you on Monday. I need to take my wife home." In the taxi, I slowly recalled the scenes and details of what had just happened. I suddenly turned to look at the person next to me. "Wang Chenqing, are you?" He sat up straight, looking me in the eye. "Are you blackmailing Mr. Li? Why do I feel like he's a bit afraid of you? We shouldn't be doing anything illegal or disorderly." The man seemed to breathe a sigh of relief and smiled with raised eyebrows. "No, honey, I didn't," he reassured me. "Mr. Li is a nice person, quite enthusiastic and polite." I always felt that his smile was fake, though I couldn't pinpoint exactly what about it seemed insincere. As we got out of the car, he held on to my wrist as we walked. From the entrance of the residential area to our building, there was a bit of a distance. The streetlights cast patches of light on the somewhat cluttered path. He seemed distracted today. Huan. It was only after we entered the house that he firmly grasped my wrist. "We'll have to go on a business trip in a few days, and I'll be gone for quite a while. If you need anything while I'm away, just call me." I nodded and hummed in acknowledgement. That night, he hugged me from behind and slowly kissed my neck. After 5 years together, some things seemed to be communicated with just a shift in gaze. Just like Wang Chenqing shouldn't have been at that private club, nor should I have been there. I don't know what he thought, because he never asked. I just felt that night, he was a bit mad and quite restless. Wang Chenqing left. I had packed his bags for him and drove him to the airport. Before he left, he leaned down to kiss my forehead. The days that followed were rather uneventful. Qin Chen had shifted his focus elsewhere, and my ongoing verbal spats with Lin Yuyu continued. She seemed to enjoy targeting my lack of wealth, but it didn't matter to me. I'm not afraid of those who have more when I have nothing to lose. Being called poor wasn't new to me. Even the lady selling fish next door had more bite than her. I video called Wang Chenqing every day. He seemed to always stay in a very cheap motel. I suggested he stay in a nicer hotel, but he refused. He said, "How can I justify staying in an expensive place when my wife is living in a rental? Living alone can sometimes be more economical than living as a couple." As the end of the year approached, work became busier. Not only that, but Lin Yuyu had finally managed to get close to our company's supervisor. Thanks to her, a lot of her work started piling up on me. so much so that when I got home, I had neither the time nor the energy to cook, and despite the cost, I had to order takeout. Then something quite troubling happened these past few days. My takeout kept getting stolen. In our complex, the takeout orders were left at a designated spot near the parcel lockers. Recently, my orders had repeatedly gone missing. I asked in our building's group chat if anyone had taken the wrong order by mistake, but no one responded. I also spoke to the property management about installing cameras at the pickup spot, but they used the excuse of unpaid management fees to suggest I pay for the installation myself. I asked in the group chat several times if someone had taken my order, and suddenly one of the residents snapped at me. They accused me of making a big deal over a small amount of money, constantly fussing over a takeout worth just a few bucks. Frustrated and angry, I video called Wan Chin-ching. He was still in that rundown motel, talking to me in the corridor while a drunk couple staggered past him. He asked what was wrong, if I had been upset by something. For the first time, I felt like I couldn't see a future, like the dark corridor behind him. He was already so tired, how could I burden him with my grievances? So, I forced the most natural smile I could muster and told him I was fine. The next day, when I ordered takeout again, I specifically asked the restaurant to make it extremely spicy, the spicier the better. That evening, when I went to pick up my food, sure enough, I saw someone taking my order again. He seems to be a habitual offender, almost as if he deliberately wanted to upset me by only taking my food delivery. To be honest, when someone took my food delivery, I felt a slight thrill of revenge. However, later that evening, someone spoke up in the group chat. I never expected it to be the person who had ridiculed me earlier for fussing over a few bucks worth of food delivery. Who the hell put insanely spicy stuff in the food delivery? My kid ended up in the hospital with acute gastroenteritis because of it. Have you no morals or decency? Whoever loaded it with chili, you better show yourself and compensate me. He didn't mention at all that he had stolen the food delivery. Honestly, even if I'm usually calm, I was so furious at that moment that I felt like I could explode. In a fit of anger, I blurted out in the group chat that I had ordered the food and I was the one who made it insanely spicy, specifically to punish the thief who stole it. As a result, that resident added me on WeChat. He immediately sent me a QR code. The medical bills for my child are 5,800 yuan, plus 4,200 yuan for emotional distress. That's a total of 10,000 yuan. Compensate me. I won't ask you for compensation for my child's missed school days and other miscellaneous expenses. Honestly, I've never seen such a shameless family. The next day, that woman was causing a scene at my doorstep with her child. She accused me of being heartless and premeditated. She argued that her child was just playing around, that it wasn't really stealing, yet I had punished him so severely. He's just a child, do you have to be so harsh? Her finger was pointed right at me, while the child cried pitifully on the side. Just for stealing a bit of your food delivery, you put so much spice in it. Do you realize that's illegal? Compensate us for the medical bills or we'll sue you. Rubbing my throbbing forehead, the person in front of me was clearly being unreasonable. Not to mention, how could a child continue eating something so spicy without spitting it out unless the family, looking to save money, forced him to eat it? They even threatened to sue me, but I really didn't have time to play these games with them. These days have been non-stop. Lin Yuyu seems to think I'm easy to bully, dumping nearly all her work on me. But I can't quit my job or voice my concerns. At a time like this, without money, I might not even be able to make ends meet. At 9:30 p.m., I got home and stared at the lawyer's notice stuck to my door. They really sued me. The charges were for administering a hazardous substance and excessive self-defense. My prior messages in the WeChat group, which hinted at revenge and intention, were used against me. I opened the lawyer's notice and read each page. My mother always said I was impulsive and too emotional. Now, I really regret it. I should have just said in the group chat that I like my food insanely spicy. Today, I hid the lawyer's notice before video calling Wan Chin-ching, but for some reason, seeing his face, feeling the distance between us, a wave of grievances overwhelmed me. I didn't feel like crying when I received the lawyer's notice. I wasn't even upset knowing I couldn't afford a lawyer to fight the lawsuit, but seeing Wan Chin-ching, hearing his voice, I just felt so wronged. At first, I could still talk about daily stuff with a smile, but as we talked, I started crying, unable to stop my tears. He kept calling my name over the phone. I hastily wiped away my tears before hanging up the phone. The next day, My boss asked me to work overtime. It was the first time I refused, the first time I just lay in bed, wanting to do nothing. I felt like I was about to be fired, and suddenly, I felt overwhelmed and indifferent. I couldn't stop thinking about the issues at hand. Gritting my teeth, I wanted to confront that family, to argue. It was my food delivery that was stolen repeatedly. I was the one left hungry. Why should I have to pay? But I couldn't even afford a lawyer. At 11:30 in the morning, someone violently knocked on my door. I opened it to find a child standing there. It was the child who had been hospitalized because of the spiciness of the food in my delivery. Upon seeing me, he spit at me and harshly cursed, "Animal. You made me go to the hospital." His parents were not far off, staring at me. "Where's the money for my kids' medical bills? I don't want to settle this privately. See you in court where you'll have to pay even more." They threatened me early in the morning. I took a deep breath, but before I could respond, a kid suddenly bumped into me. The child was as strong as a young bull, causing me to lose my balance and bump my head on the door frame. My head throbbed painfully. "Who told you to hurt me? I'll kill you." I saw his clenched fist aiming for my face and instinctively closed my eyes, but the punch never landed. Instead, I heard a familiar voice say, "You know you're committing assault, right?" I couldn't believe it. Wang Chenqing, who was thousands of miles away in another city just yesterday, was now standing in front of me, holding the child by the collar. The kid was wailing and cursing. His words shockingly foul for his age. The parents, who had initially been spectators, rushed over frantically. They went to protect their child, but Wang Chenqing had already lifted him up first. "What are you doing? What are you going to do to my baby?" The parent was clearly panicked but relentless. "I want you to pay for the medical expenses. What dare you do to my baby?" But Wang Chenqing responded calmly, his voice steady and his hand gradually tightening. "Medical expenses, sure. 10,000 for a fracture. So, can I hit him?" In the hospital outside the ward, no one expected Wang Chenqing to actually follow through. The parents were crying and cursing, threatening to sue us. Wang Chenqing leaned lazily against the wall, completely indifferent to the noise. His clothes were a bit messy. I had called him yesterday, and he had rushed over this morning. His tie was askew, and I reached out to straighten it, which caused the parents next to us to grumble discontentedly, accusing us of colluding and being morally corrupt. In reality, Wang Chenqing hadn't hit hard at all. Even the doctors joked that if he had been any later, the child would have been able to run around, yet the parents made a huge scene, and the child wailed loudly. It seemed that finally annoyed by the noise. Wang Chenqing looked up at them and said, "Is it just money you want? How much?" The woman seemed stunned by his presence for a second or two, then, perhaps realizing that we were not wealthy, she grew more confident. 200,000. I heard someone beside me scoff softly. 200,000, is that all you ask for your only chance to scam someone? The woman, clearly thinking the same, confirmed, "Yes, I want 200,000, can you afford it?" "Everyone knows you're the poorest in this building. Your bank account number," Wang Chenqing said, interrupting her impatiently. The woman scoffed and rolled her eyes disdainfully. As she recited her bank account number, Wang Chenqing kept his head down, apparently busy with something on his phone. Seconds later, the woman's expression turned particularly colorful, as if Wang Chenqing had indeed transferred that much money. "Once you receive the money, don't bother my girlfriend. Or you might consider trying to mess with her." Wang Chenqing's tone suggested he could easily cover the medical expenses. I was dragged all the way here by Wang Chenqing. He seems very familiar with this place, but suddenly, I have many questions about him. "Wang Chenqing, where did you get so much money? Did you max out your credit card? Where are you taking me? It seems we're in a hospital's underground parking garage, but we originally came here by taxi." "Huan, actually, I am very wealthy." He held my wrist and suddenly spoke to me with utmost seriousness. I forced a smile, trying to keep my tone light. "Haha, what are you talking about all of a sudden?" But the next second, I saw the headlights of a Ferrari parked in a nearby corner flash twice, and Wang Chenqing was holding car keys in his hand. He had always told me that the Ferrari key he carried was a lighter. In high school, I had a classmate from a wealthy family, whose brother drove this type of sports car. It was my first time in a luxury sports car, and I thought I would never get a second chance in my life. The interior of the car is not very spacious, and after getting in, we both fell into a prolonged silence. I didn't know how to start asking. Wang Chenqing was leaning over the steering wheel, his head buried in his arms. It took a long while before I heard him speak. "This car is mine, and this hospital, It's also owned by my family. Perhaps, this is the most absurd scene in the world. My boyfriend of 5 years, whom I thought was penniless, tells me he is actually very rich. What did I actually say to him that day? I said, Wang Ching, stop joking. I said, it's okay if you don't have money, we can earn it. I said, no way, you couldn't have lied to me for so long, you couldn't have. The watch I gave you last time is worth over 2 million, you can check the official website or get it appraised. My smile was strained, frozen on my face. The lighting in the underground parking was dim, and the incandescent light fell into his deep gray eyes. After a long while, I finally found my voice. Why did you hide it from me for so long? Do you remember when we met at the English corner in college? You said then that you hated rich people the most. The person in front of me lowered his eyes, his voice sounding as if it might break at any moment. At first, I just thought saying I was poor would make it easier to get close to you. But later, I didn't know how to untangle the lie. So you've been lying to me for 5 years, Wang Ching. I wanted to look him in the eyes, but he wouldn't meet my gaze. Are you stupid? I grabbed his shoulder, wanting to hit him, but when I actually raised my hand, I couldn't bring myself to do it. I rested my forehead against his chest, realizing my voice was soft and hoarse. Last spring, when my gastritis was acting up, you told me you were busy with work. I never told you, I said. In February this year, we ran out of money at home and for 2 weeks, we lived on plain porridge together. Just now, when you sent that boy to the hospital, do you know how scared I was? I was terrified that another lawyer's letter might show up at our door, scared that I might never see you again. Big young master, is it fun to play poor? Is it fun to spin me around in circles with your lies? Wang Ching, let me out of the car. I went to pull on the car door. But he had locked it before I could. After 5 years together, he knew me so well. I bet he's thought 1,000 times about how he would handle being confronted. Juan, you said you hate rich people. You hate liars too. I'm sorry. I'm both. I'm sorry. I don't want to let you go. When I was with Wang Ching, we actually argued quite a lot, but it was always fiery, never like this. It turned into a cold war. It was really just me ignoring him. While he would send me dozens of messages every day, I used to think that a cold war was the beginning of the end for couples, but, creating a rift with Wang Ching, it seemed impossible. Stop blocking me, my dear, it's the last phone number I have. If you block this one, I'll have to use my grandmother's, and she really wants a great-grandson. She's got a lot of opinions about me. On my way home from work, he sent me a message from a new number. I should have realized he was wealthy earlier. The morning news screen I passed every day once reported that he was a distinguished representative of the city's young entrepreneurs, but I thought it was just someone with the same name. I couldn't help it. I replied to him, then hurry up and give her a great-grandson. He replied almost instantly, if you don't want me, where would I get a great-grandson from? This man had stopped pretending altogether. Not only did he change luxury cars daily to chase after me, but he also started to fill my rental with high-end furniture. Oh right. It wasn't actually a rental. He had bought the house a long time ago. Technically, he was my landlord. That's why I hate rich people. On my way home, a quirky rabbit doll blocked my path. When I moved left, it moved left. When I moved right, it moved right. Finally, he thrust a bouquet into my arms, with a sparkling diamond ring at its center. What are you doing, Wang Ching? I tiptoed and lifted the headpiece off, revealing his familiar face. It was quite hot in summer, and inside the headpiece, it was stifling. His forehead was covered in sweat, sticking to his damp hair. Proposing, he replied without hesitation. You're proposing? Before I could finish, he leaned on me. The bulky costume was so warm, just being close to it made me feel hot. I think I'm having a heat stroke. Wife, quick, take me to your place. The air conditioning at home was something Wang Ching had insisted on installing. I turned it on for the first time. He sprawled on the sofa, looking like he had no intention of leaving for centuries. I took some ice water out of the fridge for him, sitting across from him. Wang Ching, my dad, died when I was 6. He was an engineer. And one time while inspecting a construction site, he was killed by steel and concrete that fell from the sky. Later, it was discovered that there were problems with the construction quality because the boss had skimped on material costs. My family tried to hold him accountable, but our efforts were in vain every time. He managed to settle everything with money. That's why I despise rich people. This was actually the first time I talked about my family matters with Wang Ching. It seems that before this, neither of us really cared much about each other's family situations. Sitting across from him, I thought this was the greatest distance between us, yet, he still leaned over the coffee table to ruffle my hair. I know, in his eyes, there was only the light of deep summer and dawn. That boss was already put in jail. He had done many bad things before. Getting him arrested was easy. I opened my eyes wide. He knew. When can I marry you, my dear? He asked me, tilting his head, not very seriously, which extinguished the slight surprise that had just risen in my heart. Wait until I'm as rich as you, then you can marry me. He opened his eyes wide, a bit at a loss. Juan, I can wait for you, but, with your current income, you'd have to start working from the Warring States period. Monday morning, I dragged my feet into the office. I was greeted by Lin Yuyu's piercing laugh. Lu Huan, you're late on your first day of work. Don't you want this job? I stared at her face, made up meticulously, and nodded. She seemed oblivious to the changes that had happened in the company. Indeed, we low-level employees are often the last to know anything. She walked up to me, lifted her wrist to show me her watch. See, this is a real watch. It cost 70 or 80,000, far more prestigious than the street stall trash your boyfriend gave you. Lu Huan, I'm telling you, I'm about to get a promotion. She clung to my cubicle divider, very close to me. You're getting promoted. I was somewhat surprised. She flicked her long hair. Yes, managerly said I'm capable, completely different from you idiots. Oh, right. She had hooked up with the manager a few months ago, and now, it seemed she finally had some tangible results. It's just a pity, Lu Huan, you can now call me Sister Lin. That way, when I become your boss, I might even be kind to you. I saw her desk piled with gifts. Probably from people who knew she was about to be promoted and were sucking up to her. I shook my head, ignoring her. Hey, she got angry and knocked on the glass partition of my cubicle. Ah, Sister Lin, don't get angry with such people. Exactly, I think he just doesn't want to work anymore. Previously, not so many people sided with Lin Yuyu, but now that she was gaining power, the number of sycophants had increased dramatically. I want you to kneel and apologize to me. She suddenly made an extremely unreasonable demand. It seemed her head was about to be spoiled by flattery. Before I could reply to her, our manager knocked on the door and informed us that a meeting was about to start. Damn, did you hear? Our company has been bought out. What? That's so sudden. No wonder they called us all in early this morning. The new boss is quite generous. I heard he bought the company outright without even haggling over the price. Who is it? We'll see soon enough. The new boss. As I walked into the meeting room following the crowd, someone bumped into me harshly. Lin Yuyu was glaring at me fiercely. You and your broke, failed entrepreneur boyfriend better prepare to leave your jobs. I locked eyes with her for a second or two and told her, that's not going to happen. Why not? Her smirk froze on her face in an instant. After the former leader finished speaking and bowed, he invited the new leader to come up and speak. Wang Qinqing straightened his tie and stepped up to the podium. That man, our new boss, was also the one who kept me in bed this morning and made me late. Later, Wang Qinqing told me about all the things he had done while pretending to be a poor man over the past 5 years. For instance, he'd tell me he was taking the bus while he was actually boarding his private jet, or how every birthday gift he got me over the years was worth no less than $1 million. Or how all our household items were custom-made, yet he lied that he bought them at a regular department store. Later on, the person who had been stealing our deliveries thought Wang Qinqing was rich and tried to extort more money from him. Wang ended up countersuing him, causing that person to lose a significant amount of money. That person and his family wailed and pleaded at my doorstep until Wang called a couple of bodyguards to remove them. I never saw that family again and I have no idea what methods he used. Later,